Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on supply chain talks. The topic of our webinar today is innovations in logistics driving global supply chains. My name is Noman Ali. I'm the founder of Supply Chain Talks. And today in this webinar, I am joined by our expert panelist, Mr. Farooq Sheikh, Ms. Sama Kamir, and Mr. Sohail Bhatt. So I would request first off from Mr. Farooq Sheikh to give an introduction about himself, please. Mr. Farooq Sheikh.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much, Nauman, for inviting me to this panel. I'm Farooq Sheikh. I'm CEO of LogicPoint, the pioneer of developing and establishing bonded zones and logistics parks in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. In addition to developing the zones, we also provide integrated logistics services. I have been in Middle East for about last 20 years across most of the countries and involved in logistics field for the past 20 years throughout my career. For the past 2.5 years, I have been with LogicPoint and striving to achieve Vision 2030 objectives and play our role in that. Thank you very
much. Next, I would request Ms. Sama if she can introduce herself, please. Sama, your mic is mute, please.
Good day, everyone. My name is Sama Kamheye. I am from Jordan. I have 18 years plus experience in different aspects of supply chain. I started my career in Dubai, and from there I reached a different level in different industries, and I started climbing the ladder of men's environment slowly. Being in logistics is something I feel like I could not do anything before this, because if you look back to my education, it's a microbiology, has nothing to do with supply chain. But when I got into this industry, I couldn't even get out of it and still breathing it deeply. I became the group head of supply chain in Sultan Center, and from there I understood that it's never stopping to go far more in the supply chain industry. Currently, I am a supply chain consultant. I do many things that has everything with the supply chain, logistics, transportation, warehousing, distribution. And this is life, to be honest with you. For us, supply chain is what we breathe. For us, supply chain is the backbone of everything. And being with you, gentlemen, it's really an honor to speak with experts like Mr. Farooq, Engineer Numan, and Sohail.
Thank you, Sama, for the introduction. So over to you, Sohail.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good evening, depending on where you're listening from. My name is Sohail. I am currently the supply chain manager for Nestle in Ireland, and I've been with supply chains more than 15 years now. As a background, I am an electronics engineer from Ghulam Mustafa Khan Institute. So straight away went into supply chain logistics, started off at Sanofi Ventus. That's where me and Numan got in touch with us as well. And then after a few years of working in supply chain, I did realize that I need to further expand my exposure of supply chain. That's where I went to do a specialization in supply chain. So I did my master's in supply chain management and logistics from National University of Singapore, and then did the maths element of supply chain from Georgia Tech in US. And then came back, joined Nestle again, and I've been working in Nestle in various positions within supply chain linked with logistics, planning, supply chain optimization in various markets, including Nestle Pakistan, Sri Lanka. I worked for a small while in DHL in Singapore as well. And just very recently, the area that I was actually looking at was logistics business excellence. And I was also leading a logistics systems team where we used to manage our own in-house transport management system and warehouse management system. So having, I believe, the combination of operational and systems experience within supply chain. So really passionate about supply chain and really honored to be on this session today with all of you, and really looking forward for the discussion.
Thank you, Sohail. Thank you. Yes, Sohail and I go way back. We also share the same university as well. So we are alumni from the same engineering college as well. Thank you. So, coming to the topic of our webinar, so far I've done webinars on different topics. I've done on women leaders, demand planning, the future of supply chain, but logistics is something that I believe drives the supply chains, the global supply chain. And for me, they are the wheels on which supply chain moves and the organizations move with it. So this is a very close to heart topic as well for me. And as I say to everyone, that learning is a continuous process, and these webinars for me are also a learning experience that I try to absorb as much as knowledge I can get from my fellow, supply chain professionals and panelists. So diving straight right into the topic, before we talk about the technologies and the innovations in logistics, I would like to first, Sama, I would like to start off with you. That we, I would like you to, and all the others as well, to explain exactly from the basics what is logistics, how it is defined, and what areas and what functions fall under the domain of logistics within the whole supply chain. So over to you, Sama.
If you trace back the word logistics, it's a Greek ancient logistica. It comes for those people who are the Greek ones that they used to use their physique to carry military stuff and heavy stuff. That's why it came from this side of uh, what does it mean logistics. And then slowly it start evolving. It becomes a part of a chain, and this chain becomes a part of different chains. If we look at different supply chain professionals, how do they define supply chain or logistics, you will see that this definition has take different description. Let's go back to, for example, because I'm studying with MIT now, the edX, they they said that logistics involves managing. For me, I look at logistics as managing a flow of money, a flow of information, a flow of materials. It is always the link between different parties and different companies and different chains in the same company and across the world. If you go back as well, whatever you call it, distribution, you call it logistics, supply chain management, but whatever name you give logistics is the same thing. It's a flow. You manage it through different technologies, different processes, different SOPs, whatever you call it. It's the backbone of the supply chain. That's how I look at it. And it's the gritty thing, actually. It's the dirty stuff that you deal with, because people think that it's you move things from A to Z without calculating the weather, the climate, the disruption, the challenges, many things. So, but I really go back to one thing, which is that it is the movement of something. It's a flow, it's information, it's money. So, for me, as you mentioned, it's a close topic to the heart, because usually people, they don't know what does it mean, and they consider it a transportation or logistics. But it is a part of something, a part of a chain: logistics, supply chain, distribution, warehousing. It is actually the secret warrior behind many things that moves across the world. And if you see now, supply chain evolves around logistics, not the other way around. So um, for me, it's that a very vital part of supply chain that makes things happen wherever you are and whenever you need it.
Thank you, Sama. Thank you for your input. So the same, Mr. Farooq, if you can add to it from your perspective on what is logistics.
Uh, See, I think in this esteemed panel, most of you have, Sama, Sohail, and even Numan yourself, you have worked with logistics. Probably I can lay claim that the only person or who has not got involved in supply chain and has remained true to logistics is probably me, who has started his career with containers and still is dealing with containers and warehouses.
Amazing.
For me, I think supply chain is a much more evolved concept of logistics. Uh, in simpler terms, you can call supply chain the brain, and logistics the brawn of the process. Logistics involves basically a movement of cargoes, the goods, the information, the capital, and the process related to it, where supply chain is a much bigger uh, arena where you have your demand planning, the reverse logistics elements, coordination with finance and the capital, where when it comes down to physical goods and physical movement of goods and services, then logistics get involved. So in simpler terms, if you have movement of goods or services from one node to another, you call it logistics. If you have multiple nodes involved where you need coordination, then it becomes supply chain.
Thank you, Farooq, for your kind input. And yes, I think you are true to the function of logistics. Yes, and I'm looking forward that we will be learning from your, hardcore experience in the world of logistics. So, but Sohail, if you can also provide your kind input.
I think the base has already been set. I think the only thing to add within logistics would be that, yes, traditionally logistics has been linked with just moving resources from point A to point B, which is still true. But I think logistics is even more than that. So logistics, in my view, is also because if you look at supply chains within different organizations, logistics is where the major chunk of the human resource or the human capital is invested as well. So I
Hmm.
think logistics also involves a lot of people management. Logistics also involves a lot of relationship management with 3PLs, with also your internal, I would say, functions within a company as well. So I think as we are developing and as we are evolving, we are seeing many different skills that a logistician needs to have rather than just the technical knowledge of how things move from point A to B. It's also how to maneuver the relationships which are required with working with different partners. So totally agree with Farooq. So where we've got the brain of supply chain to be maybe the DNSP side of things, the real arms and legs of supply chain is logistics, and having the logistics experience is, I believe, a necessary thing to be a well-rounded supply chain professional. And also logistics is something which is actually touching the product as it moves through the value chain, and it's and then that's the area where you are closest to the customer and the consumer, because you as we as logisticians, we would see for the very first time if the consumer or customer is happy or not. So with our feedback back into the organization is also really important. So yes, it's movement of resources, but a lot more than that as well.
Thank you, Sohail. Thank you, Sohail. Thank you, everyone. Yes, you are right. And it is the crux, and without logistics experience, a 360 perspective of supply chain cannot be achieved. Uh, Having said that, if we look at how, when I started my career of 18 years back, we used to talk about the 2PL and the 3PL concept as only. But now, over those years, then from 3PL, the 4PL started off, and now even the 5PL and so forth is there, and so many technologies. So I would, Farooq, sir, from your, you have been in the logistics arena all your career. So how has, the logistics arena transformed over the years? So we would like to hear from you on this.
I think uh, there's a lot of various elements to what has happened in logistics. Some are touched upon the old logistica philosophy in the beginning, and logistics had been affiliated with
Wait.
military and armies of the past. If you look at, or if you compare logistics with many other industries, logistics is actually a latecomer to technology party. And most of the developments that have happened in logistics have happened over the past 20, 30 years, barring one, which I will touch upon later on. If you look at the evolution of logistics, even in past 20, 30 years, we can segregate them into three different areas. One is the functionality. Uh, Maybe before, slightly before your time, when in 90s, if I recall 90s, still logistics was a very fragmented and segmented industry. We did not have global logistics players as say. We will have global couriers, global freight forwarders, but not global logistics players. This has started in late 90s, early 2000s, when you started seeing global players like DHL, UPS becoming, or DB Shankar becoming logistics players
Yeah.
from the freight forwarders or individual units within those big conglomerates. So first of all, the functionality has evolved over the past 20, 30 years. The second element that has evolved is adaptability. In SCM, you may call it a relationship between what it was with a vendor and now that vendor becoming your true partner with the evolution of technology and some of the subjects that we will touch upon later on, the transparency, information flow, and everything. Since we are there, now the logistics partners have become, or logistics service providers have become partners to their customers because they hold inventories, they make sure the product is on the shelf for their customer rather than the manufacturing giant or the retail company dictating which product goes where. So somehow the responsibilities have shifted. So I would call it adaptability. And a lot has taken evolved over the past 20, 30 years in this field. The third one, which is actually the oldest one, and we give credit to it, the global expansion that we see, it could not have happened if one unit, the box, the container would not have been launched in 50s and 60s. That is the key element which has driven globalization to great extent. And it was the key enabler of global trends that we have witnessed in the past 50 years. So this is how I define the evolution of logistics industry in the past 50 years or so. But before that, I would think that the logistics was a very static industry. Nothing much had changed over hundreds of years in that.
So, so rightly said. Yes, with the coming of the container concept and the standardization, how we are moving our cargo around the world globally, and not just that, how you are supposed to put your material into the cargo, and the standardization of the pallets and the containers, or the packaging of containers, that has truly evolved, and that has allowed to supply chains and supply chains of other organizations to communicate well, and the logistics to get intertwined and synchronized. Thank you. So now, Sohail, on to you. Your input on the transformation, please.
Uh, I believe all the transformation has been triggered around product availability, because I think over the years, logistics, and since the 15 uh, to 18 years that I've been in the industry, I've seen logistics transform from being a transactional back office clerical, I would say, a function which just performs as per instructions, to more of a competitive advantage for the companies. So companies having good products, I think what really becomes the differentiator is whether we've got the product on the shelf or not. So remember, no product on shelf, there is not even a choice for the consumer to actually to have to work on. So in the end, I believe it's this element of logistics which is becoming a differentiating factor within companies, and hence there's a lot of focus within companies to actually invest in logistics improvements and efficiencies, and then also to take the feedback loop back into the planning and into the overall, I would say, product development process as well, so that it can be optimized end to end. So it's not something that, or light logistics implications are to be considered as an afterthought, but they are something which needs to be considered at the time of product design itself. So I think that's something which I've really seen as logistics evolve over the last decade or so. And so that's where I believe, yes, how logistics has transformed. Uh, that's my
Thank
view.
you. Thank you, Sohail. Sama, if you may please take on
The
forward.
transformation that happened, the transformation that happened in logistics has changed actually. the way that companies look at logistics. If you see different companies, especially in GCC, they allow me to say that they never had logistics in their portfolio or in the functions until they understand that to link chains together, you need one important function, as Mr. Sheikh and Sohaib said. Without moving the items, there is no logistics. If you consider it as an important part of the chain, that is where every flow happens from A to Z. The evolving happens from being trucking, then to by air, then by sea, and then the Incoterms come to word, and a lot of things happened that evolved and reshaped the movement of material. They used to call it movement of materials or material handlings or whatever. And then suddenly, boom, it comes with the logistics terms because it's all, as Mr. Sheikh said, it's the muscles and the heart and the brain and the blood and everything. Missing this piece of the supply chain makes every company knows that there is a very important tool called logistics that moves things. I still believe, I still believe it's still evolving. Logistics, with whatever happens in the world or whatever will happen, because now we start becoming very familiar with the crisis that is hitting us badly. The logistics has changed. If you look at companies, for example, I'm talking about real life in Kuwait, especially, they never have something called logistics. They call it supply chain or sales and operation. Suddenly, with the crisis, logistics becomes having its important, vital role in moving things, and people start relying on it and starting adding more technologies. And we will come back to this and start thinking out of the black box, how to do this, how to do that, by courier, by sea, by everything, even Uber, even by what do you call it, motorbikes. So for us, logistics has evolved tremendously. Even a few months ago, if you look, logistics has taken different names, but still it is what moves things from origins to different parts in the world. And what, as Mr. Sheikh said, what reverse the shipment from its destination to origin. So this is the important link that is still evolving, and every day and every minute people are now having more reliance and more faith in something called logistics, because I still believe we as logisticians, we still have lots of, honestly, things to do in our world, in our life, because um, I still believe, as you gentlemen said, it's the muscles behind every move in the world, and it's the flow between all of us and between all countries, and that moves things between, even when the crisis hit. Logistics was the reason that moves supplies to different countries. So it's still evolving for me, in my view. It's still evolving. It will never stop.
Yes. True, Sama. Yes, definitely. See, the only constant in the world is change. This is what I believe in. That change is the only constant, and things would continue to change. And so is the case with innovation and technology. They will transform the world around us and all the functions that we are working in. Now, since now that we have touched on the basics of logistics, I would like now to move into a more in-depth topics. And my next topic revolves around that the concept of the improvement of transparency and reliability of the supply chain is vital to maintain a flexible and dynamic relationship between all the key stakeholders across the supply chain. So, in your opinion, and I would like Sohail to start off with this, that in your opinion, what steps can be taken by logisticians to ensure it, and how technology can support the transparency and traceability?
I think, Numan, thanks for the question. I think the industry that I belong to, and also with my previous experience of the pharmaceutical industry, I think traceability and transparency is the most important and vital point of consideration within the whole overall value chain. And over the years, we've seen companies evolve by relying more on these big ERPs like SAP to have end-to-end traceability within the domains of their own control. So once we get the product in from the supplier to the point it is delivered to our customer, we've got that control and traceability. Now, what the phenomena that we are seeing now is that with the advent of technology and with the advent of new and I would say better concepts coming in terms of us having the capability to process more data with big data concepts, uh, us having the ability to work with more connected devices, with Internet of Things, and also with concepts like blockchain, there is a lot more available to the companies now to actually go beyond their uh, expenses or beyond their existing boundaries of product traceability. So now we are talking about from the point something is picked from the farm to the point it reaches the consumer, we have end-to-end traceability available. Now, the key thing over here is that while we are looking at all these technologies, that for the logisticians, we really need to work on what is the right use case for us within the organizations to really then focus on what we want to work on. So for me, I believe it's really important that we need to sort of call it we need to be or be closer to the C's, which is we need to be close to our customer, we need to be close to our operations, but we also need to be close to the technology. And it's actually an amalgamation of these which will provide us the right use case. And one of the most important use cases is traceability and transparency, which I believe there are some questions related to blockchain as well which we'll come to. But I think
Mm.
that in my view will continue to be the focus. And also another, I would say, external factor which is really putting a lot of focus on this is the need of the consumers as well. So with the advent of social media and with the visibility and the voice which a consumer has now, they are asking the companies to be more transparent, to be more visible in terms of their sourcing decisions, in terms of their logistics decisions, and in terms of how product is actually made available to them and in what formats. So I think this is also driving the organizations to be more transparent, to be more open in what they are presenting as solutions to the consumers and customers.
So true. Thank you, Sohail. And if I go back down the memory lane, if I remember back in Aventis when we both were working together, I remember one of the key projects on traceability that I think you were spearheading was the cold chain logistics that we were trying to implement for one of the products coming in importing. And we had those temperature monitors and all the data we had to collect and then ensure that throughout the whole value chain, the temperature remains between the 0 and the 4 degree. And
Yes.
so I think that was our first exposure into the traceability in logistics together.
Exactly, and that did expose us to many new, I would
Yeah.
say, concepts of working with different partners. So it started off from the manufacturing facility till the
Yeah.
time it reached the pharmacy and then to the consumer itself in terms of
Yes.
maintaining that temperature traceability. Because otherwise, because it was very critical because we were playing with people's lives. So so having that visibility and efficacy of supply chain was the key for the success of that launch. Yes, you're right.
Yes, thank you. I think there's something wrong with Sama is back. So, Sama, I would like you to continue on this same topic of transparency and traceability, please.
The transparency is important topic when it comes to logistics or supply chain. Um, from the real life, especially when I was working with Liwa Trading, we used to have a very important customer called La Senza, which is a part of Victoria's Secret. The lack of transparency and the lack of visibility enable us, unfortunately, to provide the services to 34 or I guess 24 customers, which is our stores. Uh, the lack of seeing what's coming or the production or the availability or the stock on the shelves, etc., did not allow us to provide the profit that the company was looking for. To, as you mentioned, to make things happen, logistics or supply chain has to get involved, and the only thing that we were uh, pushing for is the EDI implementation. The EDI was there. Unfortunately, you have a system, but if you do not use it correctly, unfortunately, it's like a system available there, and that's it. It's like a shelf. It's like a book on the shelf without reading it. Integrating the EDI with our freight forwarder, which was at that time Schinker, and with the supply chain in lessons, Victoria's Secret enable us to see every lot coming to us, enable every one in the supply chain and in the planning and merchandising to know what is the product that is coming, what is the lot is coming, the quantity and everything. That transformed the environment of our warehouse logistics to a to an environment that is only picking and packing and delivery. So if you fix the transparency in supply chain, which is a very important thing, you know that the income or the last piece of the supply chain will be fulfilling, because you are at the end fulfilling your internal customer, the stores in retail. The EDI for me was, this is the tool to see what's happening from the minute it is picked, packed, and delivered to us. So, as unfortunately, I couldn't hear most of what Suhail said, but I believe that there are a lot of tools, a lot of transformation that enabled every company to provide that transparency in supply chain across the supply chain from the origin to destination. And for me, that was a real life in our retail industry, that the ADI was the tool to see what happens, and it helps as well in increasing the productivity side of warehousing, because they used to search the boxes to see what's in it, because there is no visibility whatsoever to understand what is exactly coming. The tools that implemented showed us how to manage and how to ensure that we do things more efficiently, and effectiveness of the supply chain was 99% if you compare it to 75 in the beginning. So yes, things are changing, and everything, every aspect of logistics and tools we added to it, it is honestly important for all the upstream and the downstream, and it's important for all the stakeholders in the supply chain and in the company.
Thank you, Samad. So I will move this to Farooq, if you may. And also, I would share, Farooq, for you a question as well here, because I believe that this is very linked with the transparency and traceability. So if you can also go through this question, and if you can also answer this as well. It's from Mr. Gibran. He's from from Saudi British Bank. He's asking how relevant is the concept of JIT in the logistics function, and how has it evolved with the improvement in technology in the logistics functions. So if you can also, with your response to the traceability and transparency, touch upon this question as well, please.
Thank you, Noman. I will certainly address this one because it's a very much very relevant question to our discussion. Now, Sohail has touched upon as to why transparency and traceability is important and what role it plays in overall logistics. And Sima clearly gave the example of how it affected the bottom line of the company, or lack of having a proper traceability affected the bottom line of the company. See, both of these concepts are actually driven by ultimate demand, customer demand. Customers want traceability. Of course, that means our end line wants traceability. They should know, as Sama explained, that they should know which product is available where and at what time it is arriving. And then transparency. Transparency is, unfortunately, it was not something which came out voluntarily. There was a lot of consumer activism behind it, that so that it became a concept in itself. People who are familiar with the subject would remember cases of Nike and Apple in the earlier years, 90s and early 2000s, when some human rights violation and improper practices took place in manufacturing facilities across the globe, which forced them actually to come up with a transparency index, the audits, and everything. Now, implementing it is not that difficult actually. Transparency is a higher level information about your facilities, about your suppliers, uh, their compliance with rules, regulations, and requirements, and any violations against it that need. So, from a process perspective, transparency can be implemented easily. It just requires the will and understanding of what we ought to do, and there is no difficult science behind it actually. So this is it can be implemented easily, and all the global socially responsible firms take it seriously nowadays. The problem
Thank
happens when it comes to traceability, and I think Sohail would have a better experience with his systems background as well and operations. That as the technology is evolving, it is trying to address the question of traceability. We do still have multiple partners, multiple players in logistics and supply chain, and having an integrated end-to-end traceability still remains a challenge. So every player may have its own system in the process, and they usually provide information at the start point and end point of their role in the supply chain. So you can see the nodes from traceability perspective. You can see the nodes, but not within the nodes. And this is where the next frontier is, where most of the logistics companies are working towards. And with the technology developing and evolving rapidly, very soon we will see actually uh, even the manufacturing process, where the material is in at what stage in overall logistics supply chain, and when a product which is being manufactured, when it will be ready, and how and what time it will be delivered.
thank you. So, perfect. So I believe you have touched upon the GIT as well now.
No, now I will come. Thank you for reminding me.
Yes.
Uh, this concept, of course, there are lots of benefits behind of JIT, just-in-time inventory management system. Now, you need to look at it from the recent COVID perspective as well. Companies that were following JIT inventory system in an ideal world is an amazing concept, works well. Most of the motor companies, they follow JIT system with some combination of buffer stock and everything. But COVID and the lockdowns of past 7, 8 months have played havoc with this concept, because companies or manufacturing plants following JIT uh, were unable to ramp up or even sustain the production levels once they were back, and they didn't have enough materials to put their production plants in place. And if you go out in the market ordering at that time, even your suppliers were not working. So in an ideal world, yes, JIT works very well. The concept was pioneered by Toyota in late 80s, early 90s, and and most of the other companies have adopted it, because you don't have to carry huge inventory cost on your statements, and you don't have working capital tied in it. But then it has to be balanced with your black swan event, or I wouldn't call it black swan events, because no one plans for black swan events. We plan for normal disruption, let me call it. COVID was a black swan event. Regardless of how no one will keep a 1 year inventory in stock, because it's not financially viable. So the concept is still very much relevant, but now we have to factor in any supply chain disruption into our JIT inventory systems. And I think this will be the next topic of study for many accommodations going forward. What sort of formula adjustments that we need to bring in, so that our JIT concepts remain relevant.
I think Numan, just to add a little bit on this particular point, I remember a few years ago visiting the BMW manufacturing. It was an SUV manufacturing plant. Very interestingly, so that particular manufacturing plant used to manufacture. Every vehicle that used to come out used to be a unique SUV. So either it's a different seating or a different audio system in the vehicle. So every SUV was unique. And the interesting fact about that is that the lead time that they used to give to the consumers was around 9 months. So that's the time that they took to get all the parts and engines and everything just in time, reach to the facility for the actual vehicle to be manufactured in 4 hours. So
Okay.
that's how the automation industry is reliant on JIT as we speak. But spot on in terms of the input on the current reality, it's always a trade-off between service and cost when it comes to your planning around contingency events. So I think very truly the JIT concepts and the concepts of how much of contingency that the companies would want to keep to ensure a continuous stream of supply is will be an essential topic within the DSP community and within the logistics community moving forward.
Mhm. Thank you, Farooq, and thank you, Sohail, for your input on the question. And I hope that the question was for the participant truly answered. Now, moving on to our next topic, that is, we will talk about the next generation logistics management solutions and how they are making or moving or pushing the global supply chains to be more customer centric and sustainable. So, Sama, I think your link is okay now.
It's losing you, and some of what you guys have been chatting, I couldn't understand or hear you, but I heard only Mr. Farouk.
Okay,
The for Suhail, I couldn't hear him. Unfortunately, I couldn't hear what he said about BMW.
no, no
I don't know
problem.
if it's my link or your link. I don't know.
As long as you are back with us. So the next the question on this webinar is for you, and we are now talking about the next generation logistics management solutions and how they are moving the global supply chains to be more customer centric and sustainable. So we the participant would love to hear your experiences on this and your examples.
If we look at supply chain or the next generation, I believe with the agility and sustainability and resiliency, those are the keys for the next generation and for any supply chain to survive. Um, eh, Most of the companies they are not investing in agility, but they call themselves agile and they think that they do sustainability. But it all comes at the end of the day of how do you deliver or how do you fulfill or how do you do customer satisfaction. Um, Companies now, especially now because the supply chain and logistics is under the spotlight or the spotlight, it's very important to make sure that your supply chain, your logistics, even for the next generation or for the current or for whatever event will happen, because we don't know really. Every year we have a crisis. I call it challenge. If you look at it, the agility of your processes and the logistics team and the sustainability is all about how you deliver to your customer and how you ensure that the bottom line is healthy. um, every day we are challenged by how to do rationalizing our SKUs, the shifting of production. How do you convert your environment to a fast-paced environment? How to make sure that whatever arrived is delivered, or as most of my fellows said about regulatories, the tools are used, the WMS in its place, the product is shifted, the product is received, or whatever. The significance importance of these three key vital important keys in the supply chain, which is agility, resiliency, and sustainability. It helps to understand and it helps to move the supply chain to a different level. In our from a real challenge we faced in many of the retailers, my experience most of it from the retailers side, it happens on how to strengthen your team. the supply chain team is the team that most of the time is missing. Training them and educating them and enabling them to understand that they are using inventory, which is the money of the company in forms of product, is the transformation for me. It was important to add different levels in our supply chain and restructuring the team to understand that each function under this logistics or supply chain team has are you guys losing me? Because I guess I'm losing the link. Hello?
Sama, if you can please just
Hello?
repeat your last sentence.
Can you hear me, guys?
Sama, yes, we can hear you. You may continue, please.
Okay. Um, so everything is for us making them agile, making them understanding their role. It helps us to enable our marketing team, our sales team to think and we act. It's all about what we receive and what we make it. It's like arranging things for them, distilling it into an art. So the capabilities of ensuring this with our team was one of the challenges because not any person that comes into logistics is from a logistics background, but they come with the understanding that they have to carry things. That's it. But the most important thing that we add in our solutions is like educating the team, is making them understanding that there are tools for them to help them moving things, loading, unloading, whatever. And it's always important to understand that the team is the reason why things are moving. It's not a machine. It's a person to understand his role in this environment, moving things from different side of the four walls to different customers and dealing with different team. So still solutions are coming. You have the transformation of e-com, you have the omni channels, you have a lot of blockchain, and you have lots of tools that is coming in supply chain, and it becomes like really a digital fitness to many of the companies. And if you are not ready for it, then you will be hoovered easily, especially when such crisis hitting the organization.
Thank you, Sama, for your input. Mr. Farooq, if you may continue on this.
Right. I would say that there is no other industry like logistics which exhibits customer centricity as much as we do. Now, it's a good and a bad thing that the development and evolution in our industry only happens when customer demand it, and we are a bit reactionary and not. And obviously, there have been some visionaries who have foreseen what customers demand and then start working towards it even before customers realize that there is a need for it. So logistics is a true customer-centric industry, and all our development, the advancement and technology solutions are evolving and being developed to address customers' growing demands. Now, we discussed about traceability, transparency, and now whatever is besides that, another element that is driving our technological advancement is efficiency. Now, I will not touch upon the bottom line impact because it's everyone knows that whatever you do will trickle down to your financials. But efficiency from various perspectives, labor saving, providing a healthy and safe working environment to our colleagues across the chain. So actually, this is one area in the last 20 years or so, a lot has happened. There are living examples how we operate a warehouse. So WMS systems, both the process part of it as well as the physical movement of goods and packages part of it. Both of them have evolved significantly with robotics, their automated warehouses, and we'll discuss those in detail later on, and also how the ordering, picking, sorting mechanisms work in there. Similarly, if you look at transportation services, with GPS and BPS coming in, and sustainability, e-trucking, driverless trucks, autonomous vehicles. So you see a lot of development taking place. Now, in our region, of course, I cannot call, even in Europe as such, most of the physical elements of that are still in trial phases. Let me put it this way. You don't see driverless autonomous vehicles flying the roads at the moment as such, because there are many other considerations related to mobility. It's not only logistics industry in an isolation, in a silo, that is developing these. It has to work with regulators, other elements of the society to have an overall mobility solutions. But drones, for example, you can't have drones flying around and causing more havoc than the utility they provide. But a lot, if you keep the physical part on side, on the process side, on the system side, a lot has been done. In our industry, I would say globally people know about two or three main ERP systems. But in logistics industry, you will see there are many niche players who have developed solutions which solve the problems, immediate problems, much better than any global solution will solve. So a lot is becoming in logistics industry. Now, everything that we are doing is focused on being customer centric, that it should solve immediate problems of traceability, transparency, and with a restrictive human intervention, that your order placing and everything becomes automated. And I think in processes, we have done a lot. Now, sustainability will become a part of it as and when we start implementing the physical aspects of technology development. And we will see this happening over the next 5 to 10 years.
Thank you, Farooq, for your input. Sohail, I'll move this topic to you now, but I would also like you to take one question as well with it, which is regarding the customer centric. Let me display that question. So, Mr. Mohammed Yazar, he's from Saudi Arabia. He's asking, in customer centric supply chain, we want to deliver faster than competitors. This is resulting in robust logistics and more closer to customer. This increases cost. How companies can minimize logistics costs? So first, if you may give your input on the main topic, and then you can take on this question as well.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Naman. I think I would like to answer this question. Let's sort of bifurcate it. Let's first talk about the customer centricity element, and then we'll talk about sustainability as well. I
Sure.
think in terms of customer centricity, based on my experience over the years, what I've seen is that when I used to work in Pakistan, we used to work in a more of a traditional trade environment. So I'm talking more from an FMCG sector point of view. There, a lot of the things are actually driven by the major manufacturers themselves in terms of driving the relationship with the customer. But as you move to a more developed market where you've got modern trade, and a lot of the, I would say, the needs and demands are actually driven by the customers themselves in terms of very niche requirements. I remember we used to deliver in loose cases to customers in Pakistan, but here in UK we've got very specific requirements of how the customer wants a particular product to be presented to them, whether it's putting pallets in between different SKUs, or it's having a label within with a certain specific format. So I think it really depends on the maturity of the customers, which also drives some of the discussions around, I would say, innovation within logistics as well. Now, here in UK, we are actually uh, uh, we've been seeing this transformation over the years, and obviously COVID-19 has sort of accelerated what we are seeing in e-commerce. But even if you take that factor out, e-commerce has been steadily growing over the years. And one of the very unique features of, I would say, Europe and the UK market is the rise of the discounters as well. It's the Lidls and the Aldi's, which is putting a lot of pressure on reducing down costs. So that sort of links with the question as well, which came in. So there is a lot of pressure on the supply chain and the logistics organizations of the suppliers to actually minimize their part within the overall cost infrastructure of a product. Now, with this, what we are also seeing is that where traditionally we've seen these ASRS, automated storage and retrieval system technologies, being there available for the last 30 years in more developed markets like UK and Europe and even in States, they've been primarily focused on full pallet movements or more standardized movements. And the phenomena that we are a massive change that we are seeing is a lot of the customers, and this is sort of exacerbated by the COVID-19 impact, is that they are actually ordering in less than layers, ordering in less than pallets. So there is a push, a natural push in terms of the suppliers being more responsive for more automated, less than pallet picking as well. So we've also recently gone through a transition where we've just gone live with a fully automated facility, which not only does full pallet picking through ASRS, but also does the robotic element of case and layer picking. But that has all been driven by the fact that yes, the technologies have evolved, but it's also the need of the customers and consumers which have driven this journey that we've taken. Just to add on to that, and one of the things that I saw on my own. So here we all know that in UK, Tesco is one of the biggest retailers, and what we've seen is that when this whole pressure of COVID-19 came in, a lot of the companies who already had the infrastructure of e-commerce, they actually did really good. So the companies like Amazon or Ocado within UK, but the companies like Tesco, they really had to adapt to the new ways of working. And one of the very good innovations that I saw was that they actually started using their floor space in the retail itself to perform e-commerce picking operations. Obviously, it's not as efficient as what you would see in a fully automated facility that Amazon might have, but at least it ensured that the product availability is there in these times. So coming back to the question at hand, because it links with the cost, I still remember one of the quotes which was given by one of our customers in one of their global conferences, was that they said that we want zero stock and zero out of stock. I know they might be thinking a bit differently now with COVID-19, but I think that the pressure has always been there for companies to reduce cost. So I think that's where, again, coming back to the point, I think we as logisticians, we need to always be on the lookout of use cases to improve the efficiency of our facilities, of our operations, whether it's logistics or it's warehousing. And then we need to see and overlay them with, all right, what are the different technological advances which can support them? Because it's the amalgamation of these which would eventually drive down cost throughout our value chain, because that's any new change or any new proposition will only be successful if it has a business case around it, if it has a return on investment. Only then it will flourish. So that's on the element of the question, and on the element of being customer centric. I think the second element around sustainability is also, I would say, a linked agenda, in the sense that yes, it's driven by the consumers itself, but it's also driven by the internal, I would say, want of ethical companies to actually be more sustainable, to play their role within the overall, I would say, value chain dynamics globally. Because everybody, we are working to reduce our global carbon footprint. So I think that's where we as logisticians, we do play a very important role, because we are the wheels, we are the, I would say, the people on the ground. So I think in order, if we optimize it, we've got a very big impact on the global footprint of it as well. So be it going intermodal, be it looking at various other forms of transport like electrical or LNG, or being it as simple as working on maximizing the loads that we are sending out to our customers by working collaboratively with them. So there is a lot at play which can be done on the sustainability agenda as well, and various companies are at various stages of working on it and collaborating with their customers on it.
Uh, Thank you, Suhail. And I would like to take your example of Tesco and give a more local example of within Saudi as well. Like one of the retail chain of supermarkets over here, Panda. Obviously, during the COVID, you know that the walk-in customer drastically reduced because of the lockdowns and everything. So, you know that the topic came on that they were not a model towards e-commerce, but more of a the mortar and brick model. So now everything was shifting towards e-commerce, and the customer centric and the transparency was a big question. And how do they go about it? So along with one of their partners, what they did, and they came up with the concept that now a lot of their employees, instead of releasing them or letting them go because of the hard times, they moved them into answering to the cause of the customers. So they had their own call center, they have their own contact centers, and they had a certain number of employees. But now with their own employees, facilitating the transparency and the customer centric focus, they were able to increase it tenfold with their own employees. And this way, they were able to retain their customers, fulfill their requirements. And the key part of supply chain and logistics is the visibility, that if we can provide the visibility across the channels, across to our stakeholders, that basically, solves most of the problems. The 90% of the issues are solved with providing the right visibility and transparency. So this is how one of the local players, smartly handle the situation by being more customer centric and understanding the need of the time. So now moving on to our next, again, this is more towards how, from your experiences, is on the automation side of logistics and how it significantly increases, the productivity and efficiency of the entire workflow or the entire process. So I would request Mr. Farooq, if you can take on this question from here.
And before taking on this question, I would like to add on the question that was asked by Muhammad in relation to our previous discussion.
Yes,
that
please.
How can we want to be closer to our customer and we want to have robust logistics services. How can we minimize the cost? Now, then the question you asked was for automation, and probably some of the discussion points we had about crowd shipping and crowdsourcing that will come. Mohammed, it's to answer this question, it's a mathematics. Obviously, logistics, or in this case, I would say supply chain management, as we started off in the beginning, is going to be a competitive advantage for the companies. It's just not delivering. Now, how the cost could be minimized of that process is like any other process within the manufacturing or delivery aspects of the product. There are elements of automation in the warehousing operation, which, yes, require upfront investment, but then your operating cost becomes minimum. Then the delivery, the last mile delivery element, where you have crowd shipping, crowdsourcing, where, and especially during COVID, it happened that you had plenty of individuals who were willing to provide this service, and it put the prices down. Now, of course, market dynamics could move the price up or down, but there are various ways and means with which you can work. Now, it's always a trade-off between having a certainty or having a flexibility. And you, as the logistics service provider, will have to decide whether you want certainty in your delivery or last mile delivery aspect, or you want to have some flexibility, but you are willing to pay a slightly higher cost. And it remains a constant battle and discussion point among all of us. I hope this answers that question. Now, moving on to automation in logistics industry, I will have a caveat. Let's move e-com business out of this first. And let's look at the logistics industry without the e-commerce business. Because this discussion, actually, for e-com, there can be a separate session altogether, how the automation has spurred e-commerce business or how it has enabled or helped. If you take e-commerce business out, logistics industry, it still is not very automated. If you look at it, there was a survey a year or so back where only 4% of the respondents said that they considered their operations to some degree automated. Then automation is different in different segments of logistics chain or a supply chain. You have transport, which is a totally different type of operating model than warehousing operations. Then it's a paper processing, I would call it, system, which is a huge and very big element of any logistics sector player, because you are, or we are in that, dealing with so many different parties, including the regulators, including the various authorities, the ports, the transport companies, the landlords, warehouse operating companies, plus ultimately the manufacturer and the end customer as well. So automation in all these, it has happened, but it is at a very different scale, and not all elements are aligned. There was a very interesting study done by McKinsey in 2019, and if some of our viewers have time, I would encourage them to go back. Uh, that was about automation in logistics. There is an opportunity, but there is a bigger uncertainty about it, because there is no one solution fits all in this. Similarly, especially in warehousing, now I will come to it, there is a very serious one-off syndrome in warehousing operation. You can't have one solution that will be replicated in every warehouse. Every warehouse will require a certain degree of customization. And what it does, it pushes the cost up. You don't have scalability in solutions for WMS. So which pushes the cost up. Transportation, with the involvement of regulators, is becoming more and more regulated, where you have GPS requirements to monitor the weight, the condition, the temperature, and the technology has evolved a lot faster than I would call it in WMS. Now, reminding everyone that we are taking e-com out, because that is a totally different ball game. Okay. For the normal day-to-day operations, I think we are still at infancy. Lot has to happen in that. It will require a certain degree of standardization. Even if you look at it, various announcements of various automated facilities, you will, whether in Europe or Middle East or in Asia, each one is unique. You wouldn't say that, see it, that anyone would claim that we have replicated our model from this warehouse to that warehouse. So this is where we are. And I think with passage of time, as IoT and smart technologies improve, then it will only be the layout of the warehouse that will be then need to be configured, and rest of the things will become standardized. There is a practical example I will take from container terminals. In the beginning, we used to have multiple player, because each container terminal is different layout, different location, different type of equipment. But now we are reaching at a stage where we have standard terminal operating systems. I am hoping that one day we will reach in WMS that there will be standard protocols for WMS systems, which then could be scaled or replicated across the globe. Noman, we can't.
My mic was off. My apologies. Thank you for your input, and I would appreciate if Sohail can take this forward now. This topic.
I think very rightly said, the point around the speed of innovation which has come in terms of warehousing and logistics, and in terms of transportation and logistics. Uh, how I see it is that I think the word standardization, in my view, it's going to be used less and less in future. In my view, I think we'll see less and less of standardization in future, because the needs and demands are of the consumers, as this global supply chains are linking more closely with the consumers, will require us to have, or will require us to provide unique experiences to even at a bigger scale. So even if we take the e-commerce out, I believe that the the technology would need to evolve to support more flexibility rather than standardization. Yes, keeping in view the cost elements, there would always be a trade-off, but that would be the trade-off which might become the competitive advantage of one organization over the other. In 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 terms of automation improving productivity or efficiency, I personally believe that yes, it definitely does, but it really depends on whether it's been done with the right due diligence or not. Because as Farouk mentioned as well, that there is no one size fits all solution. So if we are going for automation, we need to look at, right, what are the needs right now? What are the things that we need to improve right now? And will they be the same pain points in the future as well? Because what you're designing for now needs to be sustainable, because investing in fixed automation is a big investment. So you need to plan for years ahead, and you need to have some amount of flexibility in your design to actually cope up with that. So that's a very, I would say, a tangible and a very important consideration for any automation to have its payback as per the original element. A lot of the automation discussions are done with the caveat, or are done with the mindset that, all right, they will bring in less reliance on human capital. I believe maybe the operational human element is a different discussion, but the amount of opportunities that automation is in, or the new job arenas which automation is bringing in, is also very substantial. So where now we are seeing that in automated DCs, we've got data scientists and engineers as a regular part of the operations, rather than just the people who are managing the operations. So we are changing, we are seeing dynamics of the job profiles being changing and evolving within the logistics industry as well. So a logistician can be a data scientist, a logistician can be an engineer who looks after a piece of automation. This is how I believe the automation is bringing in value, because automation does bring in productivity improvement by many folds if you compare it with any manual operation. And we do and in some cases we don't even need to look at very fancy examples. I mean, there can be examples as simple as using motion sensor based lighting to actually control your energy consumption within a warehouse. So there are various ways in which automation, either in its simple form or in its very, I would say, complex form, can add value, but really depends on how the due diligence has been done. And I think we've seen a lot of an immense progress in transportation. We've seen how tracking and route optimization is now becoming an everyday norm. Fixed route optimization is something which the companies regularly rely on, at least in UK and Europe, and even in states as well. But now we are seeing that the route optimization is becoming more of a dynamic element. So it's more that, all right, you go onto a road, you see a congestion, and then you've got tools which let you know that this is not the right route to take, you take the other one. And we are experiencing it ourselves as well with Google Maps. We go on a road, we see a congestion, it lets us know that, all right, to take this alternate route. So this is now what we are seeing more in the freight and more in the last mile delivery in terms of transportation as well. I remember UPS 12 years ago, in terms of optimizing their last mile delivery, it was optimizing the right turns in terms of delivering to the customer, so that they go through less traffic signals.
Signals. True.
So there are many things which are happening. So I think that the simple answer to whether automation brings it efficiency, it's a capital and bold yes.
Hmm. Thank you, Sohail. Before I move to Osama, I would like to add one point, and what Sohail said, that you know, organizations and management, they should not look at automation from the perspective of headcount reduction. You know, the true value that you can get automation, if you look at it from the correct point of view, is, as I the topic of our discussion right now is the productivity efficiency. Yes, you know, to some extent the headcount right sizing might be a byproduct of it, but it might be that those resources now can be used, as Sohail mentioned, in the analytics and the business intelligence part of the automation as well, which without that, automation cannot sustain. So you need to have the analytics and the intelligence part complementing the automation to ensure the sustainability of it. And as Farooq had also mentioned, that you know, our domain, supply chain, there is no such thing as one model fits all. Every area, everything requires customization. If we also go into, you know, from a retail, a supermarket, in their warehouse, they have long expiry, they have zero expiry products, they have short expiry perishables. So, and everything cannot have the same model to it. So our WBMS and or our automation requirements are very, customized. There's a high level of customization required to it. But having said that, all that, yes, automation needs to be looked at from a productivity and efficiency improvement perspective, and not a way of cutting down headcounts. So, Sama, enough from my side. I would like you to give your input on this, please.
For me, automation has reshaped the workforce. Adding to what Sohail has said, the labor is a critical element of any logistics operation model, and up till now, there has been the trade-off between service level and cost. You need 100% or 99 service level, then there is a cost comes with it, and you have to absorb the cost because your customer is sophisticated. Every year the customer has different requirement, and if you are in still in this manual environment, you will never be able to stand across all these competitors that every day you have a new competitors. Automation breaks down the equation, allowing firms to offer better services, save money, and at the same important thing, time, because customer becomes sophisticated. They want, by a click of a button, they want things like now, whether it's offline or online. If we look at the industry now, when you speak about automation, people they think, oh, that they might lose their jobs. They don't know that automation is coming to improve the way of their work, to increase productivity, to develop a lot of processes that is manual, to convert it to automated, and to ensure the health the health of the labor as well. Because if you look at the laborers, all the laborers doing manual things, printing, I don't know, going to the same aisle, coming back, a lot of waste activities, a lot of not consider the time of providing picking, packing. If I go back to the real life, or what examples of automated has done to my experience, one of the most important customers for Miko Logistics was Alcatel Lucent. They provided the chips for Etisalat in Dubai, and they have maybe 75,000 SKUs. Once I arrived to the business and I saw that things are coming manual, and people are not doing the FIFO or I don't know what, it was really it was a catastrophic situation for us to look at things from A to Z, because there was lots of errors, lots of obsolete items, lots of delays in providing the chips, which is very important thing for Etisalat, the biggest telecommunication company in UAE. Designing a WMS, or the warehouse management system, for Alcatel Lucent once was one of the very, very challenging a topic in the company. It was how to convince the management about the cost that they need to trade off between having Alcatel Lucent or losing Alcatel Lucent. Adding this WMS, which we have implemented internally and we have tested, it has given us a tangible benefits, improved inventory accuracy, and the picking and packing. It was from 70 to 99, and improved customer service. And we start receiving thank you letter from Alcatel Lucent. That was really amazing. To go back to Azadia, they have a JDE Edwards, which is inventory management system. But it was like a cloud floating in the sky, and we do not know anything about what's really happening. So inventory people, they speak a language, and we are not in the same page until we understand that there is a link missing. The only thing it was to do is to automate it with the warehouse, and to understand that this inventory available on this shelf, available under this lot, available under this level, etc., etc. So sometimes the company has a semi-automated process or a system, but if it's not linked correctly and completely, it's still not in what you call it the right automation processes, that everybody think that I am automated, but at the end of it, it's a missing piece. And usually if you don't look at the automation from A to Z, it is not an easy process, especially that if you look at it from the minute the shipment hits the dock until it receives to your end consumer, because you need to trace it, you need to track it, you need to understand that have you fulfilled the delivery on time in full, have you managed to improve the productivity and efficiency of your team. The third example I would like to go to, which is as well as Adia, it was like different warehouses, but no warehouse is linked. No warehouse knows what happened to other warehouses. We have converted all the operation to an environment, to automated environment. We eliminate all the wasteful activities, and we reduce from 9 warehouses to 4 warehouses. So automation has a very important and very tangible benefits to every company, whether it's a small company or a big company. And currently, it's honestly very, very, very sensitive topic, that every company that comes in line, it has to have the automation background and the understanding and the tools, and it has really to teach its team or its people that automation is there to help you, to enable you. It's an enabler and facilitator. It is not a threat to any company. It is, on the contrary, it is an opportunity to be able to stand out during all these events and crises. That's how I look at automation, because I am fully honestly and strongly believe that automation is a very important part of logistics processes.
Uh, Thank you, Sama, for your input. I agree with you completely. Now we will, while when Farooq was giving his input, he said that he will keep e-commerce out. Now, I would like to bring e-commerce back onto the table. So our next topic is revolving around the topic of e-commerce, and as he also mentioned, Farooq, that e-commerce in the recent past, especially now, it's a household name. Everybody does understand the benefits and the importance of e-commerce, and it has now become a very strong business model, which is a very key enabler in all industries
Mhm.
across globally. So
Yes.
again, my question, I would put it to Sohail, if you may start off that. What role does digital logistics technology play in the success of e-commerce?
All right. So I think we've all seen a massive increase in e-commerce. I think the Amazon is delivering to my house almost every other day, and I think I also even know the name of the person now who's delivering to my house every other day. So e-commerce is a phenomena which has been, I would say, accelerated to quite high levels based on the recent COVID-19. Now, how much of it actually remains once we eventually come out of it, we don't know when that is going to happen. That is something which everybody is right now trying to predict, that what is the permanent change which has been caused by this sudden sharp rise in e-commerce, or what are the consumer habits which have actually become permanent now because of the experience that they've seen over the last few months. Coming back to the topic of the digital logistics itself, I believe digital logistics, or logistics which is linked with e-commerce, and the overall concept of e-commerce and the web shop itself are very much directly linked. So we cannot do any e-commerce operations to scale if it is not done either via some form of automation or via some form of digital logistics enabling or playing a role in it. Yes, on a short scale, on a very small pilot, there can be multiple options of setting something up, I would say, manually. But if we want to talk scale, if we want to talk about hundreds and thousands of orders on daily basis, it would only come in if there is logistical efficiency, which would only come in through digital logistics or logistics via automation. And I'll give a very small example of the foresight, or I would say the focus of companies. So when I used to be in my university, I remember there used to be a company known as Kiva Systems. So Kiva Systems used to make these small robots, which actually bring the whole shelf to the picker itself. Now they used to come to our uni to ask the students to actually work on assignments within the semesters to help optimize their route optimization for their robots, which are moving around the warehouse. Now, lo and behold, a few years from now, we came to know that all right, this particular company has been acquired by none other than Amazon, and they actually named it Amazon Robotics. So that's so it's really depends, and that is, I believe, linked with their vision and their focus to actually really expand in the arena of efficient e-commerce fulfillment centers, which does rely on a lot of robotics and which does rely on actually optimizing the time which a picker has within the operations. So you automate all the other movements, so the only bit which the picker is doing is actually just getting the product from a tray and putting it into a box, which in certain cases, if there is standardization, can be automated as well.
Mhm.
So e-commerce plays a, I think e-commerce is, and I think that's where Farouk also alluded upon in the beginning, is that e-commerce is where I think automation inherently becomes, I would say, very important. And I think one of the challenges that I've seen, especially in companies who are slightly behind in terms of e-commerce journey, is the whole piece of integration between what the web shop and what the backend fulfillment system is working on. So I believe that needs to be a strategy from the start, to have something which is integrated, which talks with the site systems and with the e-commerce itself. Uh, so that's generally on e-commerce. And then one of the, I would say, the very recent trends that we've seen is the mass personalization or customization within e-commerce. So where we've talked about, yes, just picking generic products if a consumer orders it, to the point where consumers are actually asking for personalized experience. um, there is a company by the name of tails.com, which actually is a pet food company, and what it does is that it takes into view, all right, what your pets, which in this case is dogs, what your dog's details are in terms of the breed, in terms of the physical attributes, the weight. And then using a very sophisticated AI software, it basically suggests, all right, this will be the diet plan for your pet, and this is the frequency with which it needs to be administered to or given to the dog. And then it provides the logistical solution to get the delivery for that customized recipe to the consumer, or the owner of the consumer in this case, on a regular and individual basis. So I think this is a very exciting space
Hmm.
to be in and work in right now.
Thanks, Sohail. Actually, before I move, I'll give a small example. During the COVID times, when the lockdowns were easing up, and we being Pakistanis, we have the love of mangoes. Fine. So we took this opportunity, me and a friend of mine, we took this opportunity that, you know, use COVID, the people scared of going out and going to the market into busy spaces. How can we, scale up a simple delivery model of delivering, high quality mangoes up to their houses in good, proper conditions, and what we did was not a very sophisticated digital logistics, but we did use the tools of simple digital tools like the social media accounts, having automated order entry sheets and these things, and providing a route mapping for the driver in the next morning to deliver all the orders as well. And the digitization at a small scale as well, and it can really support you to scale up your operations. We started off our day one or day two with 10 cartons of order or something, but as we moved on, we were handling around between 50 to 70 orders per day, and then we were able to scale it up from Jeddah to Riyadh as well. So again, the topic is that yes, automation, the digital logistics, can help you streamline what you're doing. And as you were mentioning, that with the pet food company, that using those analytics data, identifying who your right customers, what they need is, and then we were able to offer, we were knowing that these are ordering in high numbers on a regular basis, so we were able to offer them a better deals as well. To take better orders and bigger orders from them. So yes, so that was just an example I wanted to share, that and with the right digital logistics, you can really make something move very quickly in the logistics and the supply chain of it. So moving this to Sama, if you may please.
Um, Over the past 2 decades, the internet revolution swept the world. Our day-to-day lives have become increasingly digital. Everything we do digital. We go to the bank and we send a link to anyone in the world just to pay us online. Even if you are in India or Pakistan, I send you a link from my mobile with the number or with the amount that I want you to pay, and you quickly pay. So this is digital. Logistics introduced digital innovation, but at a slower race, to be honest with you, than some other industries. The slower rate of digital adaptation brings risks, but if it's ignored, well, like what happened with the real life that I'm gonna share with you in the coming minutes, it could be potentially, honestly, catastrophic for any company, even if it's a smaller scale. The digital platform becomes increasingly important to our logistics industry, and it allows us to move things quickly and fast and have a happy customer. Uh, that's what I noticed in the company that I used to work with, which is Al Yasra Fashion, very big leader in the company in Kuwait in fashion. We had something called ecom. It was only for one sector of the business, which is delivering the watches, delivering pens, and delivering a bit of different products. But it was called ontime.com. It's only for one sector, one division of the business, for only watches and jewelry. It was, I wouldn't say weak, because if my colleagues are hearing me, with all due respect, it was not customized. It, as Sohail mentioned, customization is very, very important. If you have an e-com and just to deliver things without customization, then you are doomed to failure. What do we call it? We did a survey. It was a real life. We did a survey on this e-com facilitation. I call it the e-tail of supply chain, because always everything happens at the end of the picking and packing. We understood that there is a system, I guess it's called Magento, and it's linked with the inventory system of the business, which is the Dynamics, but the link is broken again. I keep repeating this because some of the companies, they have systems, but it's not linked with each other. As Mr. Farouk said, they work sometimes silos. If they are silos, you have a system, whatever you call it, you have SLPs, you have processes, whatever you call it. But if it's not linked correctly, then nothing, you don't expect to have a healthy bottom line. The survey we have done, it revealed a big discovery, that everything happened. The team is printing it out. It's manual, and then they have to pick by adding things on Excel sheet, and then they have to match ordering with gift, no gift wrapping, etc., etc. So it was really a manual job rather than becoming an e-com. The survey enabled us to understand that the link is broken. We provide our input, we provide the findings and the solution with it. Currently, they are delivering the items, and I was really proud to understand that they used the same link to add all the different divisions on the same e-com website, which is clothing, footwear, different division were on the same e-com, and now they are delivering. They used to deliver 34 shipments a day, or maybe 80, and now maybe they reach to 150. And COVID tested them well. It helped them to understand that this small piece of work, which is the e-com, it was the reason why they managed to survive it during the, I don't know how many weeks or months of lockdown. Um, the other thing as well of the e-com is having a very reliable service provider. E-com cannot succeed if you have different service provider who just manage to pick and pack and deliver without understanding that there is customization at the end of the e-tail, which is a customer who wants his order today, tomorrow, etc. So I don't love e-com, to be honest with you. I'm a very classic person. I don't love to buy anything online. I love to touch things. I love to see things. But COVID tested my understanding. And maybe 2 weeks ago, honestly, I received a shipment and I was happy to receive it, although it was a bit 5 days delay. But I am trying to be, what do you call it, a techno lady, although I even don't like mobiles or whatever you call it. But I'm still old fashioned. But I guess we are changing, we are adopting, and there are different themes of the digital transformation to logistics industry. And the most important five key digital themes for this logistics digitalization is the information services, logistics services, delivery capabilities, shared logistics capabilities, and circular economy. Over the few years, we will see different different ecom. I feel that things are changing. uh, the COVID is testing all of us. The COVID is making us thinking out of the box, and it helps us as well to understand that nothing can stop logistics. Nothing, not a virus, not a swan, a black swan, nothing. Honestly, it's all about how you plan it and how you ensure that when you penetrate a market, you penetrate it right. And there is no surprise for us, because as long as you are ready for it, as long as you are well defined and well established, I don't think so any crisis can stop in front of logistics, even if it's digitalization.
Uh, Thank you so much, Sama. We have one question which is related to e-commerce, and I would like if you can take this. Even though I said that we will take the questions at the end, but some questions are related to what we are discussing right now. So this
Yes.
question is from Miss Reems Said Ahmed. She's from Egypt and she's working in the procurement department of a construction company. So her question is that can we say that e-commerce will replace or take the role of procurement in the companies?
I don't think so. Procurement is a very vital function of supply chain. It can be digitalization, yes, but it cannot be replaced. Ecom is not replacing anything. Ecom is improving life to people, improving honestly the improving the services, improving the customer experience. Um, Procurement is a very important part of the supply chain, and it is, as I mentioned before, if it's automated, then it is not an ecom. Automation in procurement is very important, and if you think it's a threat, it's never a threat. It's an opportunity to provide better services, fast services as well, and more efficiency when it comes to automated procurement. I don't think so. This is my view. I don't think so that ecom can replace procurement. I don't know if my other fellows, they have maybe more information or more experience in ecom.
Okay, thank you. I would also give my 2 cents on it that to Ms. Reem that see e-commerce can complement, can support the functions of the core function of supply chain like procurement and others. But as Sama said, that replacing it completely, that might not be the case. But yes, the digitization of activities can enhance the role of procurement, can make it more robust, can make it more, instead of being more reactive, it can be more, they can predict, they can move into the most strategic role within the organization
Yes.
with the help of digitization.
Yes.
So that is my 2 cents on it. And Farooq, I will move this to you now regarding the e-commerce bid, and even if you want to take this question as well on.
Uh, First of all, our generation uh, was brought up on brick and mortar uh,
Mhm.
model, and we
Mm.
are going to adapt to e-commerce and the digital platforms. The generation that is coming after us is brought up on digital platforms.
Yes.
Don't
Indeed.
know most of the things except for a mobile or an iPad or a laptop. This is where their world revolves. So for them to get out and try to touch a thing, they only know that it gets delivered at the doorstep. My 4-year-old knows that I need to go and log on to a website and order the food and why we need to go out. So it's a different generation coming up. And for them, I think the more attractive the digital platform is, the more user friendly the digital platform is, the better it is going to be. Probably they will never or they will rarely step foot into any shop to buy something that they like. They will more so like to do it online,
Mm.
compare the products, have comparison at their fingertips, and then go. So definitely digital technology has a significant role to play in the success or failure of e-com business. Today, we have e-commerce either dominated by the big global e-com players who keep on acquiring companies in various geographies to extend their footprint, or we have the traditional retailers entering into e-com segments. People who used to sell through shops, now they are selling through digital channels. We don't have that many independent, big, mega third party e-com platforms. Magento was one mentioned by Sama that is focusing on more traditional fashion wear or footwear. And then we have Alibaba, for example, investing into various Southeast Asian economies, creating export e-com centers for small players to come use their platforms and export their products, which is going to be still, it's not going to be an independent, but they are keeping it separate from their Alibaba store or AliExpress store. So, which is a step. And similarly, there are certain independent digital platforms coming up which enable uh, small small players to use these channels for their products. One was like Noman's his own example of getting mangoes to the customers, but this is coming in. So it has a very strong business model, and probably going forward with the new generation, this is the model which is going to dominate. There are
Yeah.
going to be few small traditional shops, stores, probably more for nostalgic reasons and providing an experience to end customer, but majority of their sale most likely is going to go through digital channels. So this is my take on how technology will become integral part of future business model. Coming to the procurement question, e-commerce basically provides you another tool to do procurement function.
Mhm.
So this is you can still be in office now if you are just picking up a phone, calling up someone, comparing the quotations and everything. E-commerce probably will provide you additional tools to do your function efficiently or probably better and have multiple parties involved. Now with AI and everything, whether it's going to replace the procurement function, procurement has to happen. That will
Mhm.
happen. Now, whether a person performs it or a machine performs it, this question is still out there in the air. This needs to be debated to what level machines can take over human element of the operations or decision making. And this is something will continue to evolve and grow in the future.
Uh, Thank you, Farooq, on this. Thank you. Now, moving on, we move from e-commerce and another topic which has been a very key buzzword or very, sought out topic in the logistics domain is the last mile delivery topic. And when we look at the last mile delivery topic, two things come into the picture is the on-demand and the crowd, as you also mentioned earlier, Farooq, the on-demand and crowd shipping technology, that it's how it supports and improves the last mile delivery market. So again, I would like, first I will start off with Sama on this, that from your perspective, how do you see the last mile delivery evolving with the aid of technologies which are now available?
Uh, it's like a sea change is upon the logistics industry, and as often is the case, to be honest with you, it's uh, it's going to turn us upside down. To be honest with you, that's what I see. I'm optimistic, but I feel that a lot of things are happening. Different factors, both social and technology, is going to accelerating the base of this change. Um, it's actually the rise of consumer centric supply chain. It's the crowd based parcel delivery. It's automation as well, the vehicle, the drones, the robotics, a lot of things, to be honest with you. If you look at it, it's even the flexibility of the warehousing and the deliveries across the four walls. It is all coming for the logistics platform, Noman. From my side, I look at the last mile delivery has really evolved different solutions, and I was reading an article about Amazon the other day and how their focus on their customer enabled them to be one of the best companies. They paid a lot of money just to enable their consumer to receive deliveries. They focus on the convenience of the customer. They didn't bother about the cost. They just focus on how to deliver in the fast and with ease and with low cost. Uh, This put them on the top of the game. And again, if you look at them, they use something called the Amazon Flex, similar to many of the demand ride services Uber. You have Uber Rush, and they connect things together from the minute you order the product until you receive it. A lot of companies are coming in the pictures. A lot of companies offering services, but you need to know which is the reliable service provider. If a provider or a service provider provides you a very low cost just to get the business, that means your delivery or your service will be really zero, and you might lose customer to other competitors. So this also provide us something called omni-channel retail, which is a delivery platform, but during the COVID, no one was able to do the omni-channel. All of them were relying on the last mile delivery and the e-com. As I mentioned, I'm not that much into e-com. I mean, it's not I don't like it, but I'm a person who believes still in that people can do miracles. So all what they need is the tool. Um, uh, the flexibility in the crowd based parcel delivery could be the answer, as Mr. Farouk said. And you still have a lot of competitors that are now providing many technology innovations just to enable them to simply, honestly, have a different horizon. And I keep using Amazon as one of the pioneers in this, because they are really doing the impossible just to have um, a very what do you call it, forever last forever experience for the customer. Having them controlling or focusing on the consumers convenience, this is honestly the way to go for different competitors.
Uh, Thank you, Sama, for your input on this. I'll move this to Farooq now. Farooq, if you can provide your insights on the last mile delivery and how technological innovations are supporting last mile deliveries?
See, as we call it, necessity is mother of invention. Uh, the crowdsourcing model started when during the financial crisis of 2009-10, when people were out of job, and there the whole concept of gig economy was there used to be an early pioneer. The company doesn't exist anymore. Stuff to send, which basically started that, okay, if you have capacity, you are available, and you have a means of mobility, you pick up something and deliver it somewhere else and get something in return, more so on barter rather than on a fees basis. In our region, this actually kickstart. It was done by, I think Aramex was the pioneer, if I remember correctly, in 2015 when they announced their whole app for couriers, where individuals who are not Aramex employees could come in and then start delivering goods on behalf of Aramex. So it was a surprise when Aramex deliveries through Aramex were coming in unmarked vehicles, sedans, people not in Aramex uniform. So this was way before uh, to 2020 when everyone started, or not, Aramex pioneered this concept here. Then, of course, other companies followed suit, companies that could not invest. But let's not look at last mile delivery by logistics companies. This model was there for Uber. Uber started this model. Kareem in the region, they were drivers who were not employees or providing a service. So this came in with Aramex in our region, and then in COVID saw an explosion where the last mile deliveries, the demand could not be fulfilled with existing resources by various companies. So everyone looked at the gig economy, and of course, on the one hand, there were people losing their jobs, but on the other hand, they were finding these opportunities. Even the employees of their own companies providing this service outside the scope of their own, employment contract. So this has very interesting connotations in our overall marketplace and workplace scenario. Now, this cannot be done on pen and paper. There has to be some technological platform to manage the volumes. And then this is how, when Aramex started, actually there was an app for customers to trace their packages, but there was an app for independent couriers that they could register, provide their services. So after that, all the other e-com players locally, Jolly Cheek, or when they launched over here, they relied on this model heavily rather than employing delivery or couriers. So this is, I think, has become a norm now. There will be a certain level of contracted or employed resources, but to deal with swings in the demand profile, crowdsourcing, crowd shipping will become an integral part of our logistics network going forward.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Farooq, I would also like you to take a question regarding this. The question is from Shehryar Ali from MOL Pakistan. How will advances in vehicle and driver behavior tracking affect reliability and cost for last mile deliveries?
Okay. Let's see. There are two ways to look at it. One, if you say that vehicle and driver behavior saves you from any unwanted accidents, okay, which incur more cost, then definitely it's going to save you cost on those elements. But overall, if you look at, see, there is always a certain cost to pay for regulatory framework implementation, and also for ensuring that we fulfill our social responsibilities. So we, as a responsible consumer, need to accept that cost. And of course, that has to be kept at bare minimum through advancement in technology, automation, and everything. Now, vehicle and driver behavior, we can have two elements. Uh, Reliability, people do not want fast service at the cost of someone over speeding and delivering the goods at their doorstep ahead of time. Reliability
Mm.
doesn't mean that you are ahead of time. Reliability means that you are on time every time. Okay. And then you have, or we have the application, the system which bring build in the buffers for that, that if you attain certain, if you use Google Maps today, for example, it gives you expected arrival time, factoring in the traffic conditions en route and providing you ultimate route calculations as well if you want to deviate from the preferred route. So we have that one. And these will, the advances in vehicle and driver behavior will of course will provide certainty and reliability in our customer service. Now whether it will increase cost or not, I think that the social cost and as well as financial cost of an unreliable service are much higher than a reliable consistent service. So gut feel, yes, it will save cost as well, but it should not be to an extent that we do not accept a socially responsible cost element in it. Then it is going to be the faster. If you are faster than the other one, then it promotes unwanted behavior.
Thank you, Farooq. Suhail, I would now move the last mile delivery topic onto you. And I think maybe you would also like to take a crack at this question from Sharia as well, because you have worked extensively on the digital logistics part of it. So over to you, Suhail.
I think coming over to the question first, Numan, I think technology plays as a really important role within logistics and within transportation within logistics. And we've seen over the past few years is that uh, monitoring, all right, how a vehicle or how a driver is performing within the route in terms of the safety of the overall delivery itself. I think that is one of the key topics which everybody in supply chain is really, I think, takes at a top level priority, because safety of our employees, safety of our people, and the safety of our resources and the product is of primary importance. And I think sometimes it really outweighs cost as well, because that is the number one agenda that we are working on. So I think just adding on to to some of the points which were already mentioned, I think one of the areas in which technology is really helping around in the field of transportation is also tracking the number of hours which a driver is actually on the road, so that it sort of prevents any, I would say, exhaustion or any other event which either takes that whole journey to a non-compliant level, or also in terms of the well-being and safety of the driver and the people around the delivery itself. So I think that so technology will continue to play a very important role. And I think with the advent of more and more IoT enabled devices, we see we can actually track a lot of the things. So very recently we did a trial of actually uh, monitoring or right the tiredness level of individuals within the logistics functions as well, so that we can view that what are the right times in which breaks need to be taken, so that we've got a more able and a happy workforce to actually work with. So I think there is a lot that is happening around in this arena. And yes, some of these elements will have cost, but the point which Farooq mentioned is spot on, that the nuisance cost of not doing this, or the cost of then managing post events of not investing in advance in these is much more. So it's always advisable to invest in these upfront. So that's
Thank
on the question itself. Now, in terms of the last mile delivery, I think the what I've seen is that it's, yes, there is a race of who delivers the fastest, but I think the main thing which the consumers and the customers also looking at is the on time concept. It's not the faster, it's when you've promised to deliver, will you deliver on that time or not. So I think that's where the reliability factor comes in. Now, if we look at uh, the logistics marketplace or the on demand or the ground shipping concept, they all work around the concept of supply and demand. Now, and it all works around the concept of maximizing the asset utilization if you can have or bring visibility of your assets to a marketplace. So what has really transformed over the, I would say, the last 5 years more or so is the advent of these platforms which have made the visibility of these assets or visibility of these resources to the wider audience. So be it the Airbnb concept in which you've got resource and you can let people rent it, or it's Airbnb for warehousing, or it's Airbnb concept or the Uber concept for transportation. We've seen this phenomena more whenever there is a direct to consumer element linked with it. We've seen this progress less, I would say, aggressively in a more B2B setup. And in my view, some of the factors which have I would say hindered this is the reliability of the overall service level. So because if we are working with our customers, we have to deliver within a certain time window. So reliability is one element. I think the other element at a larger scale is the interoperability as well. So where on a smaller scale, consumer is not, it's only acting as an input, whereas the consumer is not really integrating, is he's experience he or she is experiencing it, but there is no integration of systems over here. But when we talk about B2B, there's a lot of integration of systems which comes in, which needs to happen before we get to a reliable service offering. And the last and not the least is the whole contractual complications around it. So depending on where you are in the world, there will be different contractual implications of doing it on a more, I would say, large scale, or even if it is needs to be done on an ad hoc scale, it will require some form of contractual alignment. Now, very interestingly, we are working with an EU-based consortium, which is working on a very specific problem of actually reducing the backhaul or the empty backhaul running of various companies within Europe. Now, as a concept, it looks like a very simple concept. Yes, it is logical. If you've got empty space, when you're coming back and some other partner or even your competitor requires
Hmm.
same lane, you offer it to them. The thing which has been really hampering it is there is no standard platform which exists to actually present that,
Hmm.
I would say, that volume or that asset uh, uh, to all the different partners. So so what this consortium is doing is, one, addressing the problem of this interoperability, so that we've got different individuals who are linked up with this system which allows the data sharing in a more compliant way. And also, I think there is an element of which is just trying to solve, which is, I would say, it's still work in progress, is the whole element of automated negotiations. So if we do get a lane in which something needs to be returned back, what they're trying to do is to see how this can be automated using AI platform, so that the negotiations are done real time rather than two individuals needed to pick up a phone or send an email, and in the meantime you've lost the lane already. So I think there is a lot happening on the last mile delivery. A lot of it is hedged on the fact that we've now got tools and apps, and I would say the startups also happening, which are playing a lot of, I would say, a very creative workplace in this area. And there is a lot of investment which is happening in these logistics startups as we speak.
Uh, thank you, Sohail, for your input. Now I'll move on to a more, the big topic of the discussion, and this is something you all mentioned in your talks as well. That when Sohail mentioned about the data scientists and analytics, and again the AI, the IoT, Farooq mentioned the devices, everything now is IoT based. So now we have seen that these topics have made a major impact in every segment of the industry, in every segment walk of our lives. So how do you think that, like, IoT, artificial intelligence, blockchain, blockchain, everybody is familiar with, like, blockchain from the concept of the cryptocurrency, but blockchain has its uses and its benefits to each and every segments of it. So here you mentioned about the big data, the data mining, to work out the trends from the data and how to utilize to improve the efficiency of the organization and the supply chain. So, looking at these technologies or these available tools, uh, how do you think that from this perspective, logistics is being transformed, and how can we, as logistician and a lot of our listeners as well, how can they take, support from these technologies? So, this question, Farooq, I would like if you may take lead on this.
Uh, Thanks, Norman. For me, straight coming with the shipping and ports background, dealing with all the paperwork, the first and foremost, which is happening with big data and blockchain, is electronic bill of ladings and electronic documentation. People in Saudi Arabia who are involved in logistics industry, they are aware that almost everything is now becoming a digital transaction. Rarely we get involved with paper. It's becoming paperless. So uh, electronic e-airway bills or bill of ladings from shipping lines, and then Saudi Customs recently moved on blockchain. They tried out some of the shipments which are being imported into the country over blockchain platform to see how that is working, and actually it seems to be working quite well. Uh, so this is a clear win because logistics is a notorious industry when it comes to paperwork, uh, especially if you are involved in a global supply chain scenario. So here there are a few early wins for of digitization where most of the players in the supply chain, they are moving towards digital platforms, digital certificates, bill of ladings, payment mechanisms, bayans, customs bayans, and everything. So this is has changed rapidly already, and I think in the next couple of years you will see at a global scale, because this is driven more by regulatory authorities to promote transparency and traceability. They are moving all of them at different varying degrees of speed, moving to digital platforms for this. So then there is no issue of having different sets of documents in different countries. Language conversion, it still remains a bit of a challenge, but then I think very soon there will be a solution for that as well. Uh, Big data, IoT, we discussed earlier, decision making, artificial intelligence, and data mining is now becoming critical if you want to achieve efficiency and effectiveness in our operational processes. This is where it's more on a global supply chain rather than a simple logistics platform where you see or we see real benefits of these technologies coming in. Uh, at a more granular level, IoT is really changing the way we do our day-to-day tasks. Platforms, the readers, they have been there, the sensors, and now robotics coming in, warehousing operations being automized uh, within a yard movements are clearly showing us the way things done. The biggest advantage of that is actually safety of operations. Yes, things do go wrong, but with reduced human element, we, we get more standardization and less or lesser chance of accidents happening in workplace, because still logistics industry is one which is prone to smaller but regular incidents. So this is one key benefit we are seeing of implementing technological advancements into our day-to-day businesses. Noman, you are mute.
I appreciate. Yes, I noticed that. Thank you, Farooq, for your input. Sohail, if you may take this forward, please.
All right, thank you, Naman. So I think this is something I touched upon in one of the previous responses as well. I think
Yep.
for any technological or advancement or to review anything which is been discussed in the market, because we I think what we see as we breed up or as we sort of see how different organizations are moving. There are a lot of buzzwords, there are a lot of fads. So we do need to differentiate between fads and what is actually more viable and more, I would say, important for any logistics or even supply chain operations. So that's why I think my emphasis, rather than on the technology, my emphasis is more on the use case selection. So we don't need to work around the technology to make it work, but the technology needs to work around the use case that we have or the need that we have. So technology is an enabler. We don't need to see that, all right, whether we can fit in blockchain in what we are currently doing right now. I think what we need to see is that what is the use case. So if the use case is traceability and provenance within the supply chain, then yes, blockchain has a use case. But blockchain on its own is just a way to store data. What is really important is how blockchain integrates with IoT and some of the other tools which
Yes.
are available to actually make it work for the value chain. So it really, I think, these tools are, for example, IoT. I've got an example. So I think last year I bought Rotimatic. I don't know whether you're aware of Rotimatic or not, but it's an automated roti making machine. It's effectively like a 3D printer. You just put in flour, you put in water and oil, and it prints out a roti, and then you can have it. Uh, Now this particular device is IoT enabled, and the unique experience which it gives is that every time it does an operation in terms of, all right, every night when we run it, it asks for feedback. All right, how was your experience in terms of 5 selections, whether it's a happy phase or a sad phase? And that actually goes to the manufacturer to then further improve on the experience for the consumers moving forward. So I think now a device can be IoT enabled, but how is a company actually managing that data coming in? Now, is that being managed through an individual team just looking at that input coming in to one of their local tools, or is everything going to a data lake and then processed through big data analytics and bringing the front end in front of people? So it really depends on how we sort of advance in terms of a use case within the organization. And what's really important is that there is a will within an organization to actually improve the performance of the logistics function or improve the performance of the operations, which I believe generally is because of the consumer and the customer, I would say, arena that we are working in. So in my view, it's really important for the organizations to first get a view of the technology itself in terms of what the technology offers,
Yes.
but then it needs to be based on the internal use case of the organization. So that's
True.
my quick 2 cents on it.
And thank you, Sohail, for your input. Now, before I move to Sama,
Yes.
Sama, I would like you to take a question as well when after you have responding to this topic of AI and blockchain and how
Sure.
it's transforming. The question from one of our participants is audience is interesting one. It's from Muhammad Yazar. Is AI automation going to create unemployment in future, probably after 20 years? So this I would like you to take on. Fine. So, but your response first to our discussion, and then you can take on this question.
Yes. Additional to what Farouk and Sohail responding in regards to blockchain and IoT, we all know that there is no doubt that development of a new technology will support the industries in resolving many challenges we face. What I noticed that the blockchain has its own potential to resolve important glitches. Again, as Sohail said, in traceability and provenance challenges. And the minute it was announced, I don't know which year I was in Dubai, and then it grabbed the public's attention, and everyone wanted to get the blockchain in their the facility of blockchain in their company without knowing that do we need it or we don't, or as Sohail said, based on the cases. In the beginning, it was limited to financial, and everybody was having this understanding that blockchain is financial services industries, and then now it becomes for healthcare, technology, telecommunication, energy, and supply chain. But for me, I look at it as a gatekeeper. It is in the emerging trust economies because in supply chain, many players are there in the supply chain, many different parties as well. And the efficiency of the supply chain relies on the trust between different parties and stakeholders, and a lot of interaction between blockchain and IoT, etc. Once many of the companies that have implemented or adopted the blockchain and IoT, uh, we noticed different keys or the breakthrough of it. It happened that there was a fast transaction settlement, there was reliability, there was a low cost, and there was a transparent. The good thing of the blockchain, from my point of view, actually, because sometimes people are look at it as we will go back to the question that they think it is all about threatening the presence of people. It is not. It is, again, any development in technology, it's development, it's improvement, it's increasing the efficiency and improving capabilities of the company, the bottom line, a lot of things. So to go back on what exactly the characteristics of the blockchain, it removed any intermediate. We have lots of intermediaries in our supply chain. You use different people in the middle to facilitate different functions, but the blockchain has eliminated the presence of intermediaries. And again, the fast transaction settlement, it was really amazing to have this because both sides for the transaction are executed simultaneously. The reliable of the blockchain technology, resilient and does not have any single point of failure. That is tested and proven. The low cost as well, because you will not use people. Going back to the question of the gentleman, 20 years, I don't know if we will be alive, to be honest with you. But again, I would like to tell to everybody who is sending us questions that if technology or robotics or blockchain or ecom is a threat, please do not look at it as this. It's optimization. It's the end to end. It's helping you as an employee, as a person on a personal level, on a professional level, to improve, to develop. So no, I don't think so. Robotics will take your place if you are if you play an important role in the business. It will not take your position. Robotics are there to do the repetitive jobs because you add the program in the robotics and it does the job, but it will not respond to emails like the way you respond to emails, because people or human beings, when they respond to emails, they are not robotics. They respond to case by case. But I would like to honestly emphasize on what I say again as a person. I don't think so. Any technology will take anybody's place if they play at a very important and vital role. So relax. That is my opinion. I don't know if Farouk and Sohail has different opinion, but technology is there to enable us resolve challenges. Our thinking or the mindset needs to be changed, that any new technology is there to facilitate, is there to enable us and help us, but it's not there to destroy us. That is my point. That is the last point that I would like to talk about um, blockchain and technology.
Fine.
I think the one
Uh,
just to just
May I, Sohail, I would
yeah,
like to take it forward. Then I will give the mic over to you. Apologies. See, regarding, as we all mentioned collectively, the role of technology is not to create unemployment or redundancy. Last night I was sitting with friends and we were having a similar discussion that, you know, we need to understand that with time, how technology has come, the
Mm,
roles and definition or the job descriptions have changed as well. So unless or until we upgrade ourselves to the new technologies, we
yeah.
understand them and we understand the new demands of the market.
Yes.
If we do that, we are very much required in the market because,
Yes.
as Sohail also mentioned earlier, The data scientist, an engineer can be a data scientist, a logistician can be a data scientist as well, because now they are looking at their, in their domain, they can work it out. So unemployment, people, technologies also phase out because their utility become obsolete. And so is the case with people as well, that unless until you evolve yourself to your knowledge, to your skills, and to your input, or to what you give to an organization or to the functions, then only you will become obsolete. Otherwise, your utility, as Sama also said, will always be there. So no, unemployment is not a future unless until you adapt and you embrace these technologies.
Changes. Yeah.
Sohail, from your side now, please.
I think just very quickly, Numan. I think you've covered most of the points. I think it's more an evolution of workplace rather than, I would say, people losing their jobs, because the jobs that exist right now, even as we speak, did not exist a few years ago. The other day, I was talking with my son in terms of like what he wants to become in the future. He said that I want to be a YouTuber. So we've got jobs which did not exist a few years from now. So I think what my wife, by the way, doesn't agree whether he wants to become a YouTuber or not. That's another question. But I think just coming back to even robotics and automation. So where we are seeing, yes, a reduction of human capital in certain parts of the operations, we are seeing an increase in the resources and skills required to actually develop and program and design such systems. So I think it's the workforce is moving towards a more specialized way of working. And I think the bigger question is when it's maybe it's less of an automation or a robotics question. I think it's more of an AI related question. That's when the real AI elements would kick in, and we would really start to replace humans. For example, the other day I was talking with my wife that they've in Moorfield Hospital, that's one of the leading eye hospitals in UK. They are trialing very sophisticated eye operations using robots and artificial intelligence. So if we are talking about these highly skilled jobs also being sort of either replaced or I would say enhanced through robotics and automation, it needs to be given a serious thought, not only at a logistician or at a supply chain level. I think this needs to be given a thought more at a government level and at a country level as well, because the ethical dimensions of automation and AI is something which would at some point in time would, in my view, would need to be regulated.
Yeah.
Uh, may I?
Thank you.
I,
Please.
I will just answer this question by asking another questions uh, from historical perspective. Did computers create more unemployment or more employment? If you are
I love
able to
that.
answer
I love that.
that, you will find your answer.
Love that.
Sorry, Noman,
Okay.
please go ahead and
Sorry, my
answer.
connection went away. Okay. Now coming to our last question of our discussion, and then after we do this question, we will move to the question from the participants that, mashallah, quite plenty, and we have been able to answer a few during our discussions as well. So the last topic or discussion is something that probably we have already discussed to some extent, but I wanted a focus on this, on a very specific function of the logistics, that is the warehouse itself. That how automation and robotics are transforming the warehouse functions. We have talked about the trucking, the road transport, containers, and everything, but uh, I would like the focus to be on the warehouse function of logistics in this. So I would request from Sohail to take on this, please.
Yeah, sure, Naman. Thanks. I think in terms of warehousing, we've seen that we've already seen the evolution of warehousing actually moving from a very, I would say, paper-based system from to, being managed through sophisticated warehouse management systems. And I think in terms of warehousing, we've seen that we've already seen the evolution of warehousing actually moving from a very, I would say, paper-based system from to, being managed through sophisticated warehouse management systems. And I think in terms of warehousing, we've seen that we've already seen the evolution of warehousing actually moving from a very, I would say, paper-based system from to, being managed through sophisticated warehouse management systems. And within the warehouse management systems, I think we've seen that, right? We've seen warehouses where they just use a warehouse management system for in out, and then we've seen warehouses that use a warehouse management system to its full potential, in which they are utilizing strategies, they are utilizing optimization algorithms to actually improve the operations ongoing. With robotics and automation, it brings another layer of, I would say, improvement into the warehousing operations, which obviously uh, brings us to the point of integration itself. So this, we're talking with the assumption that yes, the integration, it's working, and the integration, it exists, because if that is not working, we that stops everything to start off with. So in terms of automation and in terms of the, I would say, different robotic functionalities which can support into warehousing. So in general, we can classify them into two categories. One would be the autonomous mobile robotics, and the other would be the stationary robots, which do come into play. So what I've seen is that, because investing in a warehouse is not a short term thing, if especially if you're doing a greenfield project. So if you've invested in a warehouse, you've invested in a certain type of racking, you've invested in a certain infrastructure, and then if you want to automate it, the first immediate option which comes in is, what can we do within the existing constraints of what we have to automate different elements of the warehousing operations. So that's where we've seen a lot of push in terms of AGVs and autonomous mobile robots supporting the warehousing operation, be it picking or following a picker within the warehouse through the pick phase, be it AGVs being used to unload or put away elements in the racking, or even supporting the outbound operations. So I think we've seen a lot of applications of AGVs even as we speak right now within the operations. The key again with AGVs is, what is the element of the human and the machine, I would say, interoperable area that we have, in order to really see what risks we are either introducing or taking away from the site. So these are the considerations which would always need to be considered when we are looking at it from an automation perspective. Then we are also, as I think this is more prevalent for either a newer setup of operations or a greenfield project, or where we've got space of expansion and the companies are actually deciding to automate certain elements of their operations, where stationary robots come in. And now those stationary robots can be used as cobots on a co-packing line, supporting some element of the operation, or these fixed stationary robots can be attached with sophisticated heads to actually do layer and case picking as well. But again, it comes down to the business case, whether the return on investment is there. It really depends on the market in which we are talking, and the context of the automation, whether the context is the I would say the continuous running of the site in terms of industrial piece, or the context is more around the return on investment on a financial way. So it really depends how we want to structure it, but we've seen various elements of automation being applied and driven through, and a lot of it needs to be backed up with either some elements of IoT, some elements of big data coming in, being processed by either through someone actually processing it by a data scientist, or using some form of AI to feed back to the automation to manage it in a more optimal way.
Hmm. Thank you, Sohail, for your input. I would like Sama, if you may also give your input on the warehousing function and how automation and robotics is supporting
Yeah.
and transforming it.
The ability of business to keep the customer satisfied, it depends on the fulfillment capabilities. And to be honest, it differs from operation to operation, and it relies on the operation strategy and how you're designing it as a critical nature of your business. But I noticed that the fulfillment with the robotics provides different elements to the business. Let's walk through on the facilities. The travel time of the machines or MHEs eliminate lots of theft, lots of damages. it becomes the base of supply chain network. To be honest with you, now every company wants to have the robotics based on scalability, and if it's a big business or a small business, and they look as well again to labor critical elements. But again, if we get another question about are we gonna lose our job because we have robotics? No, robotics is your friend. Robotics is enabling you to facilitate the single location of fast moving items of a product, and it helps you to facilitate servicing multiple channels. Um, a lot of things has changed since then with both customer expectation and technology, and even with the business needs and the stakeholders expectations. um, the scalability and the reducing of the reliance and temporary of enabling the labor pools, it's one of the reason why companies are now directing their attentions to robotics and to automation, especially when it comes to the DCs and facilitation, because these are the area where the product is received, where the product is handled, where the product needs to be facilitated to deliver to end consumer. So uh, there are different things about the evolution of goods to person, and the robotics are there to fulfill the orders, and automation solution is very important now. We are talking about hitting another year of uncertainty, but robotics, it lowered the capital of the investment and expanded the needed of the consumers. Companies who have robotics, they have met their target, to be honest with you, and still they have laborers, but that doesn't mean that the labor or human side has been eliminated completely. It's an opportunity of providing services and hit the markets and the right targets. That's how people have to look at the robotics. This is my point of view, because the world has changed, and things are evolving, and everything across the globe has changed. And robotics is honestly something is coming, and it's a new technology. It's lovely that we human being can think of things like robotics to service us to and extend. I feel that people, if they have a different mindset, they will know that evaluating this life with robotics, that there is a solution to provide a best services across the four wall of the DCs and the facilitation with the flexibility and scalability. That is my response to the automation and robotics in the DCs and facilitations.
Thank you, Sama, for your input. And on this topic, as closing remarks on this topic, I will move to Farooq, please.
See, where warehousing function is one where there is a quite a significant diversity in the types of products being handled, types of services being provided. So automation and robotics have been growing. Of course, this is, I think, the biggest cost area of supply chain for any business. It's warehousing, distribution, picking, packaging, order processing. So if you look at the total logistics cost, I think warehousing is the one which takes up the chunk of it. And that's why naturally it was the focus of automation, transformation from a perspective of cost saving in the beginning. And second, also to provide efficiency and correct order processing as the secondary outcome of it. So there has lot has been a focus has been made on this area, especially in order picking and packaging. And this is where, and with e-commerce coming in, you see the sheer volume of orders being processed. It had to be automized. So this has significantly increased the automation of overall warehousing operations, but it also has highlighted what challenges there are faced. This is a process where so far no one person could claim that it will be automized completely because of the variety of the products, the sizes, the nature of the product that are being handled in various warehousing operations. So this will remain a combination of both human and machine element going forward as well. And there will be more and more. So far, what we have seen is just the beginning of purpose-built automated warehouses. The first rush, the first wave was converting the existing infrastructure into a facility which could support robotics and automated operations, AGVs, and now we are seeing purpose-built facilities coming up. But then there are also certain sacrifices to be made with regards to flexibility, and uh, I would say longevity is still a concern because the technology is evolving with such a pace that very soon, whatever investment an LSP is making in these may become obsolete by the time there is when the time comes to realize the benefits of it. So this is going to be a continuous development program for these, and we will, all of us will learn through our current decisions that how they transform the future, and then the future decisions will be based on the outcome of what we have done today.
Correct. Thank you, Farooq. And this basically brings to a conclusion our discussion, but we still have quite a number of questions, and I would be putting them forward to you, and we will try to move quickly because we already are in 2.5 hours into this webinar. So the first question from our respected participants, our audience is, and I will try to take the first one. It's related to what we are discussing on robotics and automation. Is from Pradeep Chaudhary. He is from Shipper Delivery in Kuwait. So again, Pradeep, when you're talking about robots will take over in the logistics world as well, it's not about taking over per se, but yes, facilitate. As all our respective participants, our panelists, they mentioned that robotics automation is there to facilitate the functions, and that will continue to happen. And this is how technology is going to evolve uh, the function, logistics, overall supply chain. As we looked at how last mile deliveries, the e-commerce, how warehouse, customized warehouse, automated warehouse are being done, and all these things. So yes, robots are there to support the functionalities, but not per se take over. And definitely, it will not have an impact on the employment if the people continue to develop themselves with the latest skills and requirements of the market and how the technology is moving. So we need to move with the technology on this. Now, a question that we had earlier on as well is from Shariar Ali from MOL Pakistan, and this is a question I will put to Farooq. Uh, he's asking, in Pakistan, the government has restricted input terms to CFR, CPT, FOB, and FCA. How can one maintain cost and control on their supply chain with these restrictions? This is interesting. I like this question.
See, we need to understand why government will restrict certain sort of incoterms. There is a whole host of various contractual uh, structures that can be there between the buyers and the sellers. Now, obviously, government did not restrict these because they just like to increase the cost of anyone. There were certain precursors, there were certain reasons behind it. Now, regardless of which Incoterm is allowed or not allowed, we will not go into the discussion of which Incoterm is feasible for, because some may be feasible for certain type of industries, others may be better for other types of industries. But you need to look at it from a different perspective. These are for all the players in the market. So basically the framework, it's a level playing field for all the players in the market. So regulatory framework should not be used as an excuse or a reason or a competitive advantage to increase or decrease the cost, because the rationale behind regulatory framework is totally different. They want to protect, they don't want to encourage any misdeclarations. They want to avoid having all the loopholes that there are in the system. And that was the reason why these Incoterms were restricted, because of under invoicing, over invoicing, custom duty issues and all. Now,
Yeah.
these are all same for all the players in Pakistan. No one gets advantage over other one. So
Mm.
this is not a reason to gain advantage unless someone comes and tells that, okay, we were using it for something, and because of that, we have lost our competitive advantage. Then it's a scary scenario that someone is able to take undue advantage of Incoterms, which are standard globally. Now, controlling the supply chain, I think it does not need to be dependent on Incoterms whatsoever. You can, with today's level of transparency and having the systems integration in place, you can easily plan the supply chain. If the supplier is still the same, which you have dealt with in the past, and you know it's a reliable supplier. So that
Hmm.
supply chain reliability is not driven at all by any type of shipping method you are using, or under what sort of Incoterm you are using for that contract.
Yeah. Thank you, Farooq. I will move on to the next question. This is from Farooq would know this gentleman. This question I will put on to Sama. This is from Ghazalfar Khan. He's from Farooq's team at LogiPoint. So this question I will put to Sama, that how our respected panelists see the supply sources changing after the pandemic. If yes, how easy it will be for organization considering cost and product quality.
Can you say that again slowly?
Yeah. Yes. How our respective panelists see the supply sources changing after the pandemic? If yes, how easy it will be for organizations considering cost and product quality? I think what he means is that change of supply source, that if because of the pandemic and other thing, one supply source is not available or they are not up to the mark to provide the quality and the quantities, how can we move to another alternate supply source, and how will it impact the cost and product qualities?
Um, the pandemic has tested everyone and honestly has made everyone think out of the box. What I have noticed that there was a diverse sourcing and digitization. It was the key actually for the outsourcing. It will be easy. I wouldn't say yes, I wouldn't say no. Maybe it depends on how the new restructuring or re-engineering of processes based on different companies and based on different businesses is being uh, redefined and reshaped. Because if you were doing, for example, if you were doing centralization, now you are
Hmm.
doing decentralization. So some
Hmm.
of the companies they go for centralization of sourcing. They do a strategic planning by sourcing for the full company for different countries. But currently, because it's not easy to do centralization of sourcing, they went for a decentralization to resource and sourcing the product from different manufacturing. Even the manufacturer themselves, they were doing a centralization of sourcing product from different countries. Currently
Hmm.
they are decentralizing things. That's what I have seen, to be honest with you, and that's how I can respond to this question. But it will be easy or not easy. This is need to be tested. And I guess it was very important article I read the other day when we were on a very lovely webinar with UC Shifi. He was talking about the up to come, which is uncertainty. The uncertainty of outsourcing is something that not every company or business has looked at. They used to the norm. They used to put the order, place the order, deliver to the manufacturer. The manufacturer provide the deliveries and everything and different scales. But with the uncertainty, the companies have re-engineered their processes when it comes to outsourcing. It's not easy, to be honest with you, but is doable. It is as well fulfilling the needs of the business and of the customers. So still you outsource different strategies, but I don't think so. It's an easy. There is nothing There is nothing not doable in logistics or supply chain. It depends on how do you adapt to new technologies and how do you make your tools act to your favor. Could be decentralization, could be centralization, differs from business to business, but it's easy to do based on SOPs and based on restructuring and re-engineering.
Thank you, Sama. I would like to add a few points to what you have said. So my response to Azamfar would be that, changing in the pandemic, one thing that everyone needs to understand and learn from this pandemic is that the concept of resilience and how we can make our supply chains, our functions resilient. And an important topic in resilience is the redundancy factor. Now, redundancy itself is a negative terminology, but when we come and look into from the supply chain perspective, it is what brings the positivity to the supply chain. That from a strategic procurement or strategic sourcing point of view, we need to be ready, and we should have always been ready. That we should have, from a strategic perspective, alternate sourcing available. They might not be active, but the identification of those sources and on the right quality parameters, they should always have been. And that is what a smart supply chain looks like as well. So my answer to you would be that, you know, uh, create smart redundancies. They might not need be active redundancies, but they always be there on your shelf so that anything happens. See, you do not need a pandemic. It can be a simple disruption or a simple fire at the one of your sourcing factories. So again, the redundancies or the alternate sourcing need to be available in your back pocket so that you are able to handle the situations. So that were my 2 cents. The next question I will move on to Sohail. Sohail, this is a question for you from Gabriel Rosa from Portugal. And I think he's trying to give you a hint in this question as well, that how is logistics market in Ireland during the pandemic? And what are the main skills to start a career with logistics in Ireland? Gabriel Rosa, logistics and open to work.
I like that.
All right.
Yes.
Thanks for the question. I think one of the interesting points over here would be is that even though I'm supposed to be based in Dublin, but I'm actually working from York right now because of the whole COVID restrictions and the fact that Ireland has actually been in, I think the now the most stringent form of lockdown, more or less similar to quarter 1. I think overall, from a market point of view, what we've seen is that supply chain. So after the health services, I believe supply chain and logistics has been at the forefront of actually providing real support in this crisis situation. So I think logistics and supply chain have been at the forefront of providing and ensuring that the product availability is there on the shelf. Yes, we did see panic buying in the beginning in March, and even as we've seen the restrictions go up again, we've seen certain elements of increase in buying, but we haven't seen it to the extent that we saw in end of quarter 1. So I think the supply chains have become more resilient in terms of coping up with the availability and also ensuring that we've got the right availability of our products on the shelf. And this has been at the back of working very closely with our customers within Ireland and within UK as well to ensure that we've got the key product lines available on the shelf. And I think in terms of the second part to your question, in terms of how to start a career in logistics, I think it for me logistics is not rocket science. I think what you need in logistics is common sense. So if I believe you've got common sense, uh, you can enter logistics. But I think the general I would say feedback or general advice that I give to people is that try to do what is your passion, not what is actually prevalent in the industry right now, because if you'll do what is your passion, you'll not consider it your job. So if logistics is your passion, and my recommendation would be to actually try it out, to explore through working with various, I would say, logistics and supply chain organizations, because every company has got a logistics or a supply chain division in it. So it's more getting exposed to, or right, what sort of industry and what sort of experience you want to gain. And then I would say, even because even within supply chain there are various elements or various, I would say, career paths, be it a more generic supply chain professional career path which goes through various elements of supply chain, be it procurement, logistics, demand and supply planning, or we've got a more specialist route in which you are looking at someone who's been in the logistics industry for many years and is an expert in his or her area. So there is no wrong and right, I would say, way to progress in supply chain. It really depends on your passion. It really depends whether this is something which excites you, this is something which will keep you awake in the morning.
Mm.
Uh, Thank you, Sohail, on this. So our next question is from Gibran from Saudi Arabia, from Saudi British Bank. And I think I will take on this question. He's asking, is having a full-fledged supply chain function required in a bank as well, or is it adequately handled by the procurement department? Gibran, I will give you from my personal experience. I am right now engaged with one financial institution in Saudi Arabia as their consultant. And looking at that, how my role with them as a consultant is that, financial institutions is a service industry, and they do not have as per se the full-fledged requirements of a logistics function or a planning function and these things. So predominantly their requirement, the big chunk of requirement when we look at supply chain in totality, is the procurement function, definitely, because they are buying a lot of assets, they are buying a lot of technologies, and they are buying a lot of services to support the banking function or the financial function. So to some extent, in since it's a predominant role of supporting the business functionality and the business continuity. So usually in the financial sector, what I have experienced is that procurement department is there as a standalone which supports the organization, and they basically, if as per need, they might be handling the shipments as well, but not as a full-fledged separate functionality. And but in some areas where I've seen also is that, to some extent, a lot of organizations have it decentralized and different and functions, they are handling their own procurement and their own requirements. But the key for all of this is the centralization of it, to to pool all the requirements, to work at a central function and provide better results to the organization. So that would be my response to you. Next question, I will give it to Sama. This is from Nadeem Qureshi, and the question is, he's from Global Pallet Services Saudi Arabia, and he is from the head office in France, I believe. This is what he has given his details. The question, Sama, for you is 7 hours of logistics can define the complete supply chain management too, or does it have any additional info? So for the audience, I would like to explain what the 7 hours. Basically, the 7 hours of logistics, basically it means the right product, the right place, the right price, the right customer, the right condition in which the product is coming. As also Mr. Farooq rightly mentioned in one of his earlier discussions, that at the right time and also the right quantity. So these are the 7 rights for the audience. So your take on this, Sama? Your if you can unmute, please. Your mic is mute. Yes.
The seven elements, or whatever you call it, we call it the honestly the backbone of the supply chain. It is the delivery on time and full. And as the fellows said, yes, it's very important that any supply chain has a very strong backbone of delivering all the items on time and full. Some of them they do not meet the expectation, but most of the companies, the focus is to ensure that they deliver all the items with the all the items on time in full and with the right effective cost. So yes, it is possible, if I may, if I understand the question right, because
Mm,
uh, this is very important to any supply chain or to any logistics enthusiast, that this is my job to deliver the product to any customer in the world based on the delivery window, based on the right quantity, and with the budgeted cost that has been put as my KPIs, because every person in this function or in this environment, or what you call it, you name it, has a function. So me, for example, as a person, I do pick the right item, and then after that there is a quality control, and then after that the packaging, and then after that the documentation, and then boom, it's out of your facility. So it's not seven, you call it 7, 8, 9, 10, but these are our structure. The fundamentals of any supply chain or logistics is to ensure that whatever you deal with a product, perishable product, fragile, whatever, you need to make sure that there is something called DOTF, which is OTIF, we call it, and there is a scalability and there is a percentage to hit this mark. As a person that I have handled 300 guys, they have a KPIs, and every one of them has to make sure that his KPI is not impacting on the other person. So our KPIs is one of these, and I'm happy that he asked this question, because the OTIV is one of the KPIs that you will be honestly penalized accordingly, or you will be getting your bonus according to the same.
perfect.
I think
Thank you, Sama.
just one point to add, Numan, on this one. I think within all this, I think we do need to forget the human element of logistics as well. So that is our people. So I think
Mm,
while we are delivering these 7 hours or 8 hours or whatever you call it, I think one of the core or the heart of all this is our people and our relationships
mm.
with our internal people, and with also with our partners working within the overall supply chain as well. So I think that might be one of the areas which might not be that theoretically covered within the 7 hours.
So true. Thank you. Now we will take on the last two questions, and the next question will be for Sohail, and the last question is specifically for Mr. Farooq. It has been asked that Mr. Farooq responded by the audience. So the next question for Sohail, it is from Mohammed Yazar from Saudi Arabia, and this is for regarding the famous China Road and Belt project. So his question is how it's going to shape the local global logistics. So, Sahil, over to you.
Sorry, let me unmute myself. Thank you for the question. I think this has been one of the areas which has been really talked about in terms of the role which or the collaborative role which China has played within the infrastructure development in Pakistan as well. And I remember even from my uni days as well in Singapore, when we were looking at that, all right, uh, what is actually driving this relationship. So yes, it's our strategic closeness to China as well. But I think one of the reason of this particular, I would say, collaborative relationship between China and Pakistan is it has got a very logistical reason as well. So if you look at a lot of the manufacturing which is happening in China has been predominantly on the east coast of China, and we've seen that as that becomes more expensive, there is a shift to the central regions of China as well in terms of manufacturing.
Hmm.
And the access which Pakistan provides through the Karakoram Highway or through this Road and Belt Initiative is direct access to the warm waters by eliminating a major chunk of the logistics lead time out of it. So I think
Yes.
it is a mutual, I would say, benefit for China and Pakistan to work on it. And I think that's not only the link which goes via Pakistan. It's part of a much wider initiative in which China is it's trying to play its, I would say, global dominance in trade through engaging various other markets to have better supply chain routes and access across the globally. So I think, and then obviously there is a whole lot of, I would say, strategic importance and politics around it as well. But I'll try to answer more from a logistician's point of view why I believe this is really important.
Thank you, Sohail, for your input. Now, coming to the last question, we are now touching the 3 hour mark. So, Mr. Farooq, this one is for you. This is from Yusuf Ali Raza from Public Investment Fund, PIF, Saudi Arabia. So, the question is, what significant trends and corrections in the logistics network have you witnessed as a consequence of COVID-19? What practices have changed in the long run?
Let me put it this way: there are international elements and then there are local elements. KSA will not consider that in a local element. Reason being the change in VAT rates effective 1st of July actually changed a lot. We had a sudden influx pre-VAT increase of goods and services, and then a great slowdown after that for at least next couple of months, which has distorted the picture slightly when we are forecasting trends or evaluating trends. So let's keep that aside. I'll now globally, of course, as you are well aware, some of the other questions that came in about alternative sourcing and everything, and relevant topics on that. Yes, there is a significant shift towards digital platform and e-commerce, not only in B2C as well as in B2B markets also. Now, it's anyone's guess what portion of that will come back to pre-COVID levels. But my personal take on this, after realizing the benefits of digital platforms, of working from home and everything, whatever will come back will not be to the pre-COVID level. We have found ways and means to continue to deliver and continue to work round the clock without being tied to any physical location or one particular mean. One trend I would definitely say that logistics is now treated as a utility. You have power, you have water treatment, and you have logistics and communication and logistics. So now going forward, when you talk about utilities, it's not only power, water, and communication, it is also logistics. Because during COVID as well, one industry which did not sleep was logistics. For medical reasons, for food supplies, we had the teams working on that. So that trend continued, and people now treat it as such, that we cannot control logistics. The vivid trend that I witnessed was that collaboration among various elements of the country and globally to ensure that logistics supplies continue despite all this political upheaval from the US to Europe, and then in Asia, we had supplies going from one country to another. No one tried to restrict. The only restriction, unfortunately, that we saw was within European Union, where the supplies for essential items were stopped from one country to another. So trend-wise, I think it is still too early to put our mathematical models on analytical work to see whether we can explain how the trends have happened. We have, of course, seen that the essential items, the growth in essential items was quite pronounced because people were working from home, and they were, of course, and children were staying at home and taking online classes. So consumption of essential goods went up, whereas the luxury goods went down. But it's too early to evaluate. Maybe once we are close to the end of the year, and probably once we are back to pre-COVID ways of working to a certain extent, then only we will evaluate whether it's a long-term persistent trend or whether it's just a blip in historical 20 years trends or numbers. I don't know. I invite my other colleagues on the panel as well to pitch in if they think, even though question was addressed to me and I try to answer it from my KSA perspective, But if you have anything to add from international perspective on that.
I think just one thing to add. I think rest of the points are covered. I think one of the emerging trends that we've seen is how the teams are collaborating in this new environment. And I think one of the things which might to some extent stay is how we continue to collaborate. I mean, one example is what we are doing right now. So, and also what we've seen is how augmented reality and the companies like XM Reality who are providing these remote uh, services to actually have experts remotely virtually be present in the operations and provide support. So I think global travel linked with that is going to change. I am I think, I mean, again, that's a prediction. I might be wrong, but I think the this pandemic has will really give I would say an opportunity for organizations to really review their office footprints and see their
Yes.
spaces in terms of what's really needed, what's really essential. So I think that's something which will be required
Yeah.
or which will change.
Yes. Uh, Thank you, Sohail, and thank you, Farooq. So I think now we can move to conclude this session, this amazing session. Just for, first of all, a big thank you to all the audience and the participants who joined in. So effectively, now this has become the longest webinar that I've conducted till date. And we had over 250 participants who logged in into our live streaming on both collectively Facebook and YouTube. So, and a big thank you to my esteemed guests, my panelist, Ms. Sama, Mr. Farooq, and Mr. Sohail. Thank you for being on board here. And thank you for enlightening us on the topic of logistics. Thank you very much from my side.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for having us. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure
Thank you,
being
Naman.
here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll now we conclude our session. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.